Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am calling the 6:30 public hearing to order. This is an ordinance permitting recreational vehicles as an accessory use in existing single-family residence districts. Application of Michael Cervone, and if I'm not pronouncing that right, please let me know. Seeking to section 177-2 and section 177-6C of the West Hartford zoning ordinance. Roll call, Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Mayor Cantor,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Lazarus,
Present.
Councilor Lyons,
Here.
Councilor McGinnis,
Here.
Councilor Poland,
Here.
Councilor Walters,
Here.
Councilor Wang,
Here.
Councilor Winograd.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. We have a presentation by the resident, Mr. Cervone, the applicant.
All right, the supplemental materials should be on their way around. I believe you have the proposal itself in front of you. If not, Todd's running down to get it. I thought that material was going to be available already. Did we get started?
Yes.
Very good. Good evening, Mayor Cantor, member of the Town Council, staff, and fellow residents. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and thank you to the town staff present here for collaborating with me on this process to present the proposal. Michael Cervone, 40 Wiltshire Lane, for the record. I am here in support of the application submitted on behalf of owners of 40 Wiltshire Lane to amend the West Hartford zoning code. This is a targeted proposal intended to bring clarity where there is currently ambiguity, defining recreational vehicles by establishing clear, reasonable standards for its limited outdoor storage as an accessory use in single-family residential districts. Today, the town zoning code is silent on recreational vehicles, among other registration types for vehicles recognized by the state of Connecticut. That silence creates confusion for residents who own these assets and for enforcement staff tasked with applying the code. The result is inconsistent enforcement, unnecessary disputes, and a lack of predictability for homeowners who are trying to comply in good faith. This proposal does not introduce new land use, provide structure and standards for a use that already exists throughout our community. On a national level, anywhere from 15 to 23% of households own recreational vehicles, boats, utility trailers, and West Hartford is no exception. Zoning ordinances work best when they reflect how people actually live. Today, West Hartford families own these assets in significant numbers, yet our zoning code has not been updated to reflect that reality. At the same time, our town actively assesses and collects property taxes on these vehicles, recognizing them as legitimate personal property. In March 2025, at the State of the Town address, the mayor acknowledged the revenue contributions brought by growing grand lists, which almost a year ago stood at $7.2 billion net value, up $8.5 million from the prior period. This proposal closes the gap by aligning taxation, regulation, and modern family life. Surrounding municipalities across Connecticut recognize this reality and have adopted clear, enforceable standards that balance neighborhood character with reasonable property use. West Hartford is an outlier, and this proposal seeks to address that gap. The town does have an obligation to define how property is compliantly stored across all property classes it recognizes. Before I walk through the proposal language, I want to emphasize that our intent is not to loosen the standards set by existing precedent. We do seek to clarify them in a way that aligns with the town's plan of conservation and development and treats residents consistently and fairly. The result, we believe, would have material reduction in enforcement burden on town staff. The first proposed change is to Article 1, Section 177-2. I'm going to To formally define recreational vehicle, the purpose of the definition is to recognize a distinct difference between the definition of motor vehicle already defined in the ordinance. This definition ensures inclusivity and clarity to reflect the most common forms of recreational vehicles in use today in the terminology recognized by the state of Connecticut. As drafted, a recreational vehicle would be defined as any vehicle, motor vehicle, or trailer with or without motive power, designed or used for leisure, travel, or temporary accommodation. This includes, but is not limited to, motorhomes, campers, travel trailers, and other towable units, non-commercial utility trailers, boat trailers with boats, and all-terrain vehicles designed for off-road use. Establishing this definition ensures that residents and enforcement officers are working from the same understanding. The second proposed change is to section 177-6C, the schedule of permitted uses, to explicitly list recreational vehicles as defined in section 177-2 as a permitted accessory use in residential zoning districts R10, 13, 20, 40, and 80. Importantly, this permitted use comes with clear and reasonable conditions designed to protect neighbors and preserve community character. Under the proposal, a recreational vehicle may be parked or stored by its owner, and if stored outside of a garage, it shall be parked to the rear of the front of the main building on the lot. The intent here is to prevent recreational vehicles from remaining in driveways or in prominent frontage locations facing the street. The proposal also requires that any recreational vehicle stored outdoors be located at least 10 feet from the side or rear lot lines and not permitted in the front yard. This ensures appropriate separation from neighboring properties and avoids visual or spatial impacts on adjacent lots. Additionally, the proposal makes clear that no recreational vehicle stored on a property may be used for sleeping, living, cooking, or carrying on a business. It must be kept in good repair and in clean and sanitary conditions at all times. This provision ensures that recreational vehicles are not used as dwellings and prevents issues related to inoperability, junked, or abandoned vehicles. The ordinance further requires that recreational vehicles be buffered and adequately screened from street view and neighboring properties where necessary, consistent with existing screening and landscaping requirements already found elsewhere in the code. This allows flexibility while maintaining neighborhood aesthetics. Finally, the proposal allows temporary storage in a driveway for up to 24 hours for the purpose of loading, unloading, and cleaning. This recognizes the practical reality that these vehicles come and go and that limited driveway access is necessary to use them responsibly and compliantly. Taken together, these provisions establish clear expectations, reduce subjectivity, and provide enforcement standards that benefit residents, neighbors, and town staff. As documented in the supplemental materials provided, recreational vehicles, utility trailers, and boats already exist throughout West Hartford in significant numbers. Similarly, surrounding municipalities have adopted nearly identical frameworks without experiencing enforcement or administrative strain. This proposal brings West Hartford in line with those best practices while preserving the character of our neighborhoods, and importantly, it restores the protections of our rights as property owners where an existing local ordinance and the interpretations of it have gone too far for too long. I must also acknowledge the town has been presented with a letter from the Town Planning and Zoning Commission with respect to this proposal. While TPZ provided little to no substantiation, it makes it very difficult for anyone to understand what, if any, robust analysis was completed to reach that conclusion, versus how much inherent biases were at play. At the same time, Capital Region Council of Governments has reviewed the proposal and finds no conflict with regional plan or policies of neighboring towns. Instead, I strongly urge the Town Council to consider this proposal on its merits alone. No biases. We have a problem in need of a fix. When we needed it was yesterday. This proposal is intentionally narrow and carefully designed to minimize impact on a neighbors and neighborhood character. It does not change residential density, alter housing use, or introduce new development of any kind. It simply clarifies an accessory use on existing single-family properties. By establishing clear, objective standards, including setbacks, screening, and limitations on use, the ordinance provides predictability, not only for residents trying to comply in good faith, but also for town staff who benefit from guidance that is easier to explain and enforce consistently. Adopting this common sense update would reinforce our commitment to responsive, inclusive local government. It would reduce enforcement burdens, advance comprehensive land use planning, and ensure our regulations align with practical realities of modern family life. We recognize that refinements may be appropriate, and we welcome collaboration with staff, legal counsel, or the town council itself to strengthen the language. We strongly believe this proposal presents a balanced, thoughtful position that is at a minimum equal to, if not an improvement, to versions put forward by surrounding municipalities. I respectfully urge the council to advance this application for further review and consideration, and thank you for your time and attention. I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Cervone. We usually go to public comment first, so we're going to go to see if there's anybody signed up to speak. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask our town clerk if he had received any feedback on it.
Madam Mayor, we have not received any public comment.
Okay. Is there anybody signed up? Thank you. Okay. So Michael has signed up, and then Jennifer Cervone. I don't know if you would like to comment also, but okay. All right. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this public hearing? Okay, then we'll go to questions from the council. Are there questions from any of my councilors? Mr. Wayne, were you? I don't know.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. This is a question for anybody who might know what was the justification for TPZ to not recommend this? I tried to look through their minutes. I couldn't find much. Is anybody aware?
I don't know, but Mr. Ledwith.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Wang's question. We do have our town planner in the audience. I asked Todd to join us at the podium. I know it was found the amendment to not be in compliance with our plan of conservation and development, our POCD. But certainly Todd can address anything that's specific that came up during that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Todd DeMay, Town Planner for the record. Councilor Wang, the Planning Commission felt that the Plan of Conservation and Development was not supported in the proposed ordinance before the council. They also had some concerns with the language of the ordinance as drafted, although they acknowledged that's not their lane of review. They did point out their concern that as drafted, it was a bit ambiguous and could create an enforcement burden for the town.
Thank you. Do you know specifically what part was ambiguous? What was
a number of standards. So the standard for, I'm going off the top of my head, Councilor Wang, the buffering and screening from neighboring properties, they weren't sure how that could be effectively addressed through meaningful screening. There were also some inconsistencies in their opinion with the way the language was used for placement of the RV storing behind a front of a building or a front yard. They thought there was a little bit of ambiguity there. They also had some concerns that the definition provided of a recreational vehicle was perhaps too permissive. And in particular, they were concerned with the element of non-commercial utility trailers. Does that mean they thought there could be some room for commercial utility trailers to fit somewhere within this definition if it weren't a utility trailer? Those were kind of, off the top of my head, kind of the high technical issues that they had.
Thank you, Mr. Dumais. Anything further, Mr. Wang? Okay, thank you. All right, are there other questions for Ms. Ms. Harris?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I just clarifying what you said in your presentation. I just want to be clear on this. We're taxing these vehicles from the town on the town side, meaning people are paying taxes for these vehicles, but they're not allowed to have them on their property. I just want to be clear that I understood that, right?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Harris's question, that is correct. Yes.
Okay, I don't know, do we do that in any other situation where we tax something, a piece of property, and then not allow it to be used at the person's residence?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do not believe that to be the case. I'd have to talk with our assessor, and nothing comes to mind off the top of my head. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dumais is coming up to.
Again, Todd Dumais, Town Planner. There are instances where the assessment division will go out and assess a property. And in particular, there are a number of cases where they will count the number of dwelling units in a home, and they will assess it for the number they find. So you could have a number of multifamily properties that might be assessed at 3 or 4, but the zoning only permits, and there's only legally applied for and CO'd for 2 or fewer than it's being assessed. So there's quite a few instances where an assessment is different than what's permitted through zoning or other building permitting processes.
Thank you, Mr. Dumais. Ms. Harris?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Dumais, you might be
Yes,
needed
Mr.
back.
Domain, I just have one more question. From your comments, Mr. Domain, prior, are you suggesting that the issue through TPZ was that the way this ordinance was written is the problem, or are we suggesting that in general, meaning if the ordinance was rewritten in a certain way, would it be something that could gain a positive feedback, or are you essentially saying that that wouldn't be possible? Because the way I understood your comments was that there were problems with the way it was written, not necessarily the concept in general.
So I think as it was presently crafted and debated by the Planning Commission, they had trouble seeing its consistency with the POCD, but they did make a point of suggesting these inconsistencies and concern with the language, and that, perhaps a different version, might have had a different outcome, but they kind of stayed in their lane as the ordinance was presented to them. And I will say, for Mr. Cervone's benefit, they don't have the benefit of having a presentation for the applicant as part of that referral process. It falls upon staff to explain the ordinance as drafted and written, submitted on referral to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Are there any, Mr. Wang?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Attorney Dodge. I haven't had time to look through what other towns are doing. Do you have an opinion or some kind of guidance as far as, are we outside of the norm with this proposed ordinance, or are we outside the norm by not permitting these? And as, Councilor Harris said, and taxing them at the same time.
Thank you, Councilor Wang. I think the planner did a good job of explaining the tax issue and some of the circumstances that we deal with when there's property in town that might not be conforming but should be taxable. In terms of the question about consistency with other municipalities, I think that's less a legal question and a planning question, so I'll once again kick that over to the town planner.
Sure. Councilor Wang, I think Mr. Cervone did a good job of a kind of a blanket across really adjacent communities. If we look statewide, there's certainly a large number of communities that do permit the keeping of recreational vehicles in forms and fashions similar to the ordinance that was presented or the ones that he provided evidence to. It gets a little trickier when you have a more heavily suburbanized community with smaller lot sizes. There you start to see a divergence, or at least, if not an outright prohibition, not allowed in every area in a municipality because of smaller lot sizes. So I think it's really a function of residential density in many communities.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. I don't see any right now. I don't know, Mr. Cervone, if you, just let me read into the record, letter dated January 16th, 2026 from the Town Plan and Zoning Commission, not recommending approval. Letter dated January 6, 2026 from the Capital Region Council of Governments, finding no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighbors and towns. Mr. Cervone, I don't know if you wanted to have some closing comments. We do have another public hearing right on the heels, so, and then we will close the public hearing.
Just
Thank you.
The notes from TPZ, we recognize them. The way we crafted the language was intentional to have some of that flexibility, particularly around the buffering and screening. Rather than putting that in this ordinance itself, there are plenty of ordinances that define that. So in order to be not conflict with anything and any other updates with the broader zoning ordinance, we didn't want to bring them together in the same definition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cervone. And with that, in one more round, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, we're going to hop right into the next public hearing. This is, I'm calling the 6:45 public hearing to order. This is an application of Honeycomb Real Estate Partners LLC requesting a rezoning of approximately 2.49 acres at 230 Newington Road from an AR6 one-family resident district zone, IG, general industrial district zone, and IE, exclusive industrial zone, to RM1, multifamily residence district zone, with a special development district overlay for the redevelopment of the site into a new 54-unit, 100% for sale, affordable housing, multifamily residential community consisting of 6 two-story buildings, along with associated parking areas, storm drainage, infrastructure, and landscaping. The development will qualify as assisted housing under General Statute 830G, and we'll begin with roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Mayor Cantor. Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Counselor Harris.
Here.
Counselor Lazarus.
Present.
Counselor Lyons.
Here.
Counselor McGinnis.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Poland.
Here.
Counselor Walters.
Here.
Counselor Wang.
Here.
Counselor Winograd.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. We'll begin with the presentation by Attorney Pearson.
Excuse me, Tom Arcari with QANM Architecture. I'd just like a little assistance setting up our presentation, and then we can get on with it. Thank you. Do you run the presentation from the laptop in the rear usually, or is it from the podium laptop?
Do it here, you can control it.
Yeah, that sounds great. I got HDMI on that side maybe. Perfect. Do that, right? I don't know if you have power in the podium or not. I don't know if it's that important. I have some power. Alright. I'll try and make it work. Thank you. It's gonna want my secret password. Everyone close their eyes while I put my secret password in. Oh, offline. Yep, I'm gonna work on that right now. You wanna do it? There's the presentation, right? And it is right here.
Yes, yeah. So I think I just did a laser pointer. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Perfect. Great. Take it away.
Where's the button I push to go
To
forward?
move this slide is the right button.
Okay.
Going back is left button.
All right.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Town Council. My name is Robin Pearson. I'm an attorney with the firm of Alter Pearson and Hope at 2650 Main Street in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I represent the applicant this evening, Honeycomb Real Estate Partners, LLC. I'm going to, we've got a fairly expedited presentation for you, which I know I see lots of smiles. So I'm quickly going to tell you who's going to be speaking this evening and in what order. I'll start out introducing the application and showing you the zone change that's requested. Lewis Brown is going to then make a few remarks to you regarding their intent and vision behind the application. Our engineering team will come up, and they may be all up here together at the same time, or if not, you'll probably see Lauren Mellon and Greg Wilson up to go through the specifics of the site and the engineering that's involved to create the development that we're going to ask for your approval this evening. And they will be followed by Nick Moss, who is the traffic engineer with their firm, Fuss & O'Neill. After that, we will jump to the fun part, which is really the architecture of this development, which we think is extremely pleasing. And I will just conclude with a few summary remarks. So, let's go. Honeycomb intends to purchase, as you can see, 230 Newington Road, and also to secure a drainage easement at 60 Brook Street in West Hartford. The intent of this application is to secure approval for 54 homes in 6 buildings in a multifamily format. This new community is going to be called Madsen Acres. As noted in the notice from the newspaper, all 54 homes will be for sale, affordable homes, to be made possible through a home ownership financing program funded by the state of Connecticut through its Department of Housing. The development has been filed pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 8-30G, the Affordable Housing Appeals Statute, as an assisted housing type of development as opposed to what you might normally deal with, which is a set-aside development. I'm not sure the distinctions are relevant for your considerations this evening, but what it means in terms of this application, that all of the units are going to be affordable, not 30%, not 60%. All of the units will be affordable at varying degrees of affordability. But this development will only go forward if they are able to get that funding through the Department of Housing. And that is because a development of this quality, of this low density, cannot be built without that kind of assistance from the state. It's a program that makes it possible to do this. So I'd like to go to our site plan. Right arrow.
Bottom right corner.
Right or right bar.
Wow.
This one, right?
Yeah. That's interesting.
There you go.
There you go.
No, is that the right one? Site plan, it's okay. Just, why don't you stay close? Okay, what you see before you now is a site plan laid out on an aerial photograph that shows the proposed development. And I believe that you can see, after looking at this rendered site plan, that the proposed homes, which are in 6 separate buildings, are really nestled into the site to create a residential community that is both neighborly on the interior by virtue of the patios and the balconies, the porches, and the connectivity of the sidewalks between the units, that creates a desirable type of community, but it's also appropriately scaled in terms of its mass and height as it presents its face to Newington Road, which of course is the road running north and south through this site plan slide. So it really is something that relates well to the existing neighborhood, especially when you look at this view.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Just want
All
to
right.
hit one half.
This is a slide of the streetscape. You know what, it's slipping off on the edge a little bit, but maybe that's what we have here. It looks like it's curving around the corner. In any event, this is a streetscape that the West Hartford Design Review Advisory Committee had asked the applicant to prepare to be able to assess and achieve a result, which is evidenced by this streetscape, that the building as proposed will be compatible with the scale and features of existing residential structures on either side. So it definitely, we believe, demonstrates, and DRAC agreed with us, that it is compatible in terms of its presence as you come up or down Newington Road. I am going to skip forward to the zoning map, which is not the next slide, but the slide after that. Just to describe for you what is being proposed here. The site is here, and I am outlining it for you. The front part of 230 Newington Road, which was a newly created lot, adjusting the lot line that previously existed for 60 Brook Street, taking property from 60 Brook Street and adding it to 230 Newington Road. But the front portion of the property is zoned R6 right now, a single-family zone. The proposal is to change that to an RM1, a multifamily zone, and then together with the entire property, the site, to impose a special development district over it. It's an interesting site with 3 zones actually affecting it now, which is not a desirable situation. The southerly sliver, which I'm outlining, is currently zoned IE. That's an industrial zone. It too will be rezoned if this application is approved to RM1. And the major portion of the rear of 230 Newington Road is currently zoned IG, which is a general industrial zone, the same zone as is the rest of 60 Brook Street behind it. It too will be rezoned to an RM1 zone and become part of that SDD overlay. And as you're all aware, the SDD overlay is a special design zone that you will only want to approve. It meets your strict design standards for a special development district, which does allow some flexibility in meeting the requirements of the underlying zone, which in this case would be RM1, although it does not allow you to vary certain aspects such as FAR or density of the development or lot coverage in a special development district. And the uses have to conform to the RM1 zone use. But once you approve a special development district, the only thing that can be built on that site that's encumbered by that SDD is that which you approved, unless an applicant comes back to you, or in some cases, comes back to you after working through the planner as an administrative amendment to the SDD. But ultimately, this town council has the authority to decide what happens with this site after an SDD is imposed. So it allows you to make sure that what is being approved is definitely meets your standards and is appropriate for this location. The only other thing I'd like to note is that across the street, you can see sort of diagonally to the north, an SDD RM1. That is a multifamily development in close proximity to the site That is the Goodwin multifamily development. And of course, to the north, you have significant commercial uses with the Stop and Shop development. To the east of our development is a low intensity use industrial zone on 60, or development on 60 Brook Street. And there's a mix of residential and industrial uses to the south of us. So with that, I would like now to ask Louis Brown, who, together with Stephen Caprio, who could not be here this evening, is a principal in the applicant. The applicant, of course, is Honeycomb Real Estate Partners, LLC, and he'd like to address you with regard to the desire behind their proposal that's being presented. Some of you are familiar with Honeycomb. They have a great track record with the Department of Housing, having secured funding for the well-received redevelopment of the West Hartford Insight, known now as the Camelot Apartments, and they hope to continue their good work. Louis, you're going to do it?
Louis, I just use the on-screen toggles and then hit.
Perfect. That's all for me.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Tom. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Town Council, and very importantly, members of the professional staff of the town that are here this evening, who have been tremendous to work with again. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to present our vision for this 100%, as Ms. Pearson said, affordable for-sale housing development that we're calling Madsen Acres. I'd also like to thank the town departments for their collegiality and feedback throughout this process. As Ms. Pearson alluded to, we've received comments not only from DRAC, but from other town staff members that we have actually incorporated into our plan to date. We'll talk a little bit more about that later as we get into architecture and engineering, that have helped to make this vision an even better and stronger plan. By way of introduction, as Ms. Pearson said, my name is Louis Brown. I am the founder and managing principal of Honeycomb Real Estate Partners, the developer of Madsen Acres. Quick background, I know everyone's anxious to see UConn play Providence again tonight. I was raised here in West Hartford. I attended Morley School, grew up on Fern Street, attended KP Middle School, attended Hall way back when. Actually, interestingly, Gino Ariema in 1991 was my high school graduation speaker, just as he was starting to get the program off the ground. In 2005, my wife and I moved back to West Hartford from having spent 10 years in Boston, where I was assistant corporation counsel for the city of Boston during the Big Dig days. So I certainly appreciate and understand both the public side, sitting on the public side, as well as the private side for the last 20 years. My wife and I have had the privilege of raising our kids in West Hartford, both of whom also went through the West Hartford Public Schools, Norfelt, KP, and Hall, and had a tremendous experience in those schools. And I say that because in many ways the West Hartford community has shaped both my family and my values. And it continues to influence and is relevant to the work that I think Honeycomb is doing today, not only in West Hartford, but throughout the state and outside of the state of Connecticut. My family's work and participation in this community spans decades, actually, with my mom's teaching and tutoring of West Hartford kids and my dad's therapy and counseling work with children and families. If I go back 20 years to maybe what was my first West Hartford, I don't like to say project, but opportunity to work in town, was in 2005. My dad passed away unexpectedly. And we used that as an opportunity to, both our family and friends donated funds. Some of you may know or may not know, but if you go into the children's library in the ground floor, downstairs to the public library in the children's section, there's a family and friends, there's a children's theater. If you look up in the turret of the castle, that's my dad with the grandkids that were born at the time, that an artist drew and conceived of from a photo that my mom had given him after my dad's passing. and also donated funds to create the Infinite Family Room in that same space. My dad dedicated his life's work as a therapist to helping families and children in West Hartford, and those spaces were created in his memory as a reflection of and belief in access, support, and community. They represent the kind of investment in individuals and families that makes this town so special. Sorry. My wife, if she were here tonight, she opted not to be. She would say, all right, land the plane, Louis. So that same spirit of partnership and care for community is what brings us here tonight. Honeycomb's work in West Hartford has been grounded in collaboration and housing innovation, not Honeycomb's alone, collaboration with the town and with the state. Honeycomb's first development, as Attorney Pearson stated, in West Hartford was the Camelot. It's demonstrated what's possible and really has become a showcase for the state when a town, in this case, the West Hartford Housing Authority and Jill Corrado, the state and private developer work together, work collaboratively. I think we were one of the first, if not the first town to leverage ARPA funds and set up an affordable housing fund, aligning state and local strategies. The Camelot delivered forward-thinking, affordable housing model, including enabling, and maybe not everyone knows this, 1/3 of our residents, there's 44 apartments at the Camelot, 13 of which are set aside for those earning 30% and below of area median income. That would not have been possible. The Camelot is main and main real estate in West Hartford. And we have folks that are having the opportunity to live, send their kids to West Hartford public schools who would otherwise not have been able to afford to live in West Hartford. That's pretty special. The housing development positioned West Hartford as a leader in creative affordable housing solutions. Madsen Acres, which is named in recognition of a farmer who once worked the land on Newington Road, represents yet another opportunity for West Hartford to again be at the forefront of affordable housing, in this case, affordable for sale, not rental. As Attorney Pearson said, through the State Department of Housing home ownership program, which I'm happy to get into details if folks have questions at the end, combines public investment with private developer capital in a meaningful home buyer investment. This structure allows families, in this case, who are earning 80% of area median income and below, and 60% of area median income and below, to build equity while ensuring the homes remain perpetually affordable. That's important for future generations. Just as important, the project is intentionally designed to set new homeowners up for long-term success. That includes our development team pre-funding a homeowners association with several $100,000 so people are set up for success should something go wrong. We want to set people on the right track. In addition, we'll have thoughtful pre-screening and home buyer counseling through a nonprofit CDFI and financial literacy support to help families sustain ownership over time. Madsen Acres is about more than housing. It's about stewardship of public resources, neighborhood stability, and opportunity. It reflects the values that drew my family back to West Hartford and that keeps us invested in its future and your investment in its future. I thank you for your time tonight. We're hopeful that after tonight, Honeycomb and its talented team of professionals in the town and the state will embark on another transformational partnership. Before I turn it over, and this is, this headline that I'm going to share actually comes yesterday from the Banker and Tradesman periodical that really covers all of New England, but you see it every day. But I think it's worth noting and relevant. This article, which I excerpted, says, at a time when home ownership has slipped out of reach for many working and middle-class families, the answer will speak volumes about who our housing system is designed to accommodate and who it leaves behind. Madsen Acres will help to leave fewer people behind. It is not a silver bullet, but it is a step in the right direction. And again, it can't be emphasized more. With this new program, West Hartford will once again be at the forefront of creating innovative housing, affordable housing solutions. With that, I'm going to, and I think we're going to probably hold questions to the end, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren Mello from Fuss and O'Neill to talk through the engineering. And though my mom could not be here tonight, every gift she gets me has some version of a bee on it. So this is the notebook my mom told me to bring tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. For the record, my name is Lauren Mello. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of Connecticut with West O'Neill and the Madsen Acres team tonight. Here you can see the proposed site plan rendering. There are 6 buildings containing 54 homes distributed throughout them. As you can see, the buildings are arranged around the perimeter of the site with the parking lot internal to the buildings. The vehicle entrance, let me see if I can use the cursor, is located right here off of Newington Road. It's utilizing the existing curb cut that exists there today. And we'll talk about the site more in detail later on. We just wanted to give you a first glimpse at it from bird's eye view. As Attorney Pearson mentioned, the site at 230 Newington Road is located in the Elmwood section of town. It's strategically positioned immediately south of the Newington Road Plaza and west of the Connecticut Fast Track and Amtrak rail corridors, offering high walkability and transit access. And you can see the Stop and Shop Plaza just to the northeast of the site. The Goodwin site that was previously mentioned is diagonally north of the project area, which is the nearby affordable housing RM1 zone. A little bit of site history. At 230 Newington Road is a 2.5 acre undeveloped woodland containing wetlands and a portion of Jacobs Brook. And Jacobs Brook, you can see is, I'll show you in a later slide, but it's running around this north perimeter here and down near the eastern property line there. In the 1950s and early 60s, a dwelling and outbuilding were constructed, only to be demolished in the 70s, and the lot has remained vacant since. Access to public utilities are all available in Newington Road. In January of last year, a Phase 1 environmental assessment was completed, which concluded no environmental areas of concern exist on the properties, or in other words, it's clean. And then finally, last October, the project conducted soil testing for foundations, groundwater, and the future infiltration system that I'll discuss later on. And these testing results have been incorporated into the design. And as you will see throughout the presentation, the vast majority of the project is located on 230 Newington Road. It's this red outlined area of woodland that you see. I wanted to point out there is a small area of construction right here that's dotted in yellow and there's light blue that contains some work on the adjacent 60 Brook Street. And that work is for a pipe being installed for drainage of the site, and we're proposing a temporary construction easement and permanent right to drain and maintenance easement there. And then just to orient you a little bit more, you can see Jacobs Brook on this slide, cutting across the property on the north and coming down along the east on the other side of the property, eastern property line. Also on site, there is an existing 15-foot wide easement in favor of the state of Connecticut in the southeast corner down here, which contains a 48-inch culvert that drains water from off-site locations to an on-site swale that runs along the western boundary here. The 15-foot wide easement is maintained by the state of Connecticut and ultimately discharges to Jacobs Brook. So the state maintains the culvert in any area that's within that easement, and that's again located in this area of the site. There's a lot of information on this slide. This is on plan sheet G002. It's the second sheet of the set if you care to look at it. And tonight we're here requesting waivers as part of the Special Development District approval and or as permitted under the Connecticut General Statutes 830G to facilitate affordable housing. The first waiver is to allow the building line to be set back 34 feet from the street line off Newington Road, as opposed to the required 40 feet, and that's impacts this area over here, and is only specific to building 1, this long building. The second waiver is to allow the rear yard setback to be 12 feet instead of the required 15 feet. This is located along the eastern property line here, near Building 6. And we also want to note that Buildings 4 and 5 have rear yard setbacks at 13 feet as well. The third waiver is to allow the maximum horizontal building dimension to be 251 feet, or basically the length of this building, instead of 250 feet. And this is just specific to Building 1. The fourth waiver is to allow a two-way drive aisle to be 22 feet wide versus the required 24 feet. And finally, the fifth waiver is to allow parking spaces to be 18 feet long instead of the 20-foot length requirement. The fire marshal has reviewed the site layout and has approved these adjustments that you see on the screen in terms of access for fire vehicles. We ran the latest West Hartford fire truck through auto turn, as well as a standard garbage truck, simulating maneuver through the site using K-turns. And these movements were reviewed by town staff and were accepted. And all the adjustments that I just went over have been acceptable to town staff. And for the next few slides, I'm going to turn this over to Greg Wilson, who will talk more about site layout and landscaping.
Hi, good evening. For the record, my name is Greg Wilson, Senior Landscape Architect with Fuss & O'Neill. So Lauren, I'll just also touch upon the site layout. As Lauren mentioned, site access is off Newington Road. Utilizing the location of an existing curb cut, the vehicular circulation is internal to the buildings, as Lauren mentioned, in this L-shaped parking lot with a turnaround at the end. The pedestrian circulation is a continuous accessible sidewalk that runs around the perimeter of the parking lot and also connects to all building entrances and the existing sidewalk along Newington Road. The proposed homes are oriented around the perimeter of the site. And as Robin mentioned earlier, and you saw some of the renderings, they're designed to fit with the look and size of the neighborhood, so very contextual. We also have the dumpster location here, which is centrally located internally. That is fully gated and enclosed with a 6-foot solid fence on the outside with actually a 1-foot lattice on top, so it's a total 7 feet tall. We did make some changes in response to draft comments. The gap between the bottom of the fence and the concrete pad is now 2 inches, and the comment was if we can lower that and prevent any potential, if there's any loose debris or trash in there from blowing out, that small gap will prevent that. And then also centrally located are the community mailboxes, which are in that landscape island right next to the accessible sidewalk. And then we also have an entry sign right over here. That will be a monument sign. The lettering is only facing the street side, and it meets the height and square footage face requirements. And now I can talk about the landscape plan, which consists of a plant palette that's entirely native to New England, with the exception of one plant, which is the prairie fire crabapple tree. That tree is actually a hybrid that was developed from domesticated apple trees that have been here for a very long time, in wild crab apples. That particular variety was developed in 1982. It is incredibly disease-resistant, low maintenance, which reduces needs for treatments, any pesticides, and it's part of a family of very common crab apples in our zone, and certainly not invasive. The planting schemes are broken into really 2 main groups. The first I'll call the interior plantings. And those are internal to the site. They really respond to the site, the architecture, provide structure, ground cover, utility screening, and shade for the parking areas. In the landscape zones between the sidewalk and the buildings, we have a variety of native low-growing ground cover shrubs that provide excellent coverage and are also of a high ornamental value. Mainly, it's the low-scape chokeberry, which has glossy green foliage, produces hundreds of small white flower clusters in the spring, and in the fall, the leaves turn a really brilliant red that contrasts with the dark purple berries. And then mixed in with that is low-growth sumac, another fantastic ground cover shrub that also has glossy green leaves and really excellent red fall color. Those leaves are also fragrant when crushed or brushed again, so they kind of add another layer of sensory value at these front doors. And then for screening of the condenser units in the back, both for people that live here, out their back porches, and then from adjacent properties, we have the shamrock inkberry, another native evergreen. That particular variety stays compact and doesn't get so big like the straight species. So it's really ideal as an evergreen shrub back there. And then along the western property line, we have another native tree, the eastern red cedar. So those will get fairly big, around 30 feet tall, but that's really a high quality visual screen from the properties to the west, 222, 216, and 212 Newington Road. And at the street side of the dumpster enclosure, we have some eastern arborvitaes that'll provide additional screening to that 7-foot tall enclosure I mentioned before. And then for the shading of the parking areas, that is part of the zoning requirements, section 177-32E. We're required to provide 1 tree per 10 parking spaces. So with 71 spaces, that would require 7.1 trees, I guess. We're providing 9 in and around the parking area, and those consist of red maples, red oaks, and white swamp oaks. And then the second kind of major planting scheme is the buffer around the perimeter of the site. And that exists in sloped areas where we're grading back down to meet grade, and also at the edge of the existing wooded area to remain, and then further beyond is the delineated wetlands that you see in yellow. And we had some response to comments and were approved by the Inland Wetlands Commission with the buffer, and actually increased it, the density of it from our original application, and that's reflected here. So this buffer consists of larger shade trees, understory trees, and large shrubs, and then another layer of smaller shrubs that are very typical of wetland adjacent and riparian systems. So the big trees are sweet gums that are dotted throughout the buffer. So that, again, that's a large shade tree, native. They produce very small flowers, and not really of a high ornamental or aesthetic value, but they're incredibly important for pollinators, especially native bees in our area. They also produce small fruits that are very attractive to birds and other wildlife. And then the kind of second layer of large shrubs and understory trees are native dogwood, serviceberry, and witch hazel. All 3 of those provide really exceptional flowering in the spring. And the witch hazel actually in the fall, and they can even bloom in December at different times of year. So a year-round, varying flowering plants, and again, high food value and foraging opportunities for the wildlife. And then the third shrub layer are primarily black chokeberry and buttonbush. Again, very common, naturally found in wetland adjacent riparian areas, and are really great shrubs for naturalized plantings. As they mature, they grow up, they spread out. The Chokeberry is a suckering shrub, which means the roots spread out and new shoots come up. So it's really fantastic for naturalizing, stabilizing the soil. And that's kind of that third lower understory shrub layer. And then the last landscape treatment of the buffer is the New England Conservation Seed Mix, which consists of 15 species of native perennials and grasses. And that'll get put down in all the areas after construction, quickly germinate, stabilize the soil, and really just add to that diversity of the plant buffer. And this next slide is just the photos of varying features of the proposed trees and shrubs for the project. And then I will turn it back over to Lauren for further site discussion.
Thank you, Greg. For the record, Laura Mello from Fuston O'Neill. You're looking at the technical plan for grading and drainage. The site has been graded to minimize earthwork and maintain existing drainage patterns. Stormwater runoff generated by the buildings, pavements, and interior site areas will drain into catch basins located on site. From there, stormwater will drain to hydrodynamic separators, which will treat the water for quality prior to discharging to the subsurface or below grade infiltration system. The infiltration system, which is this blue rectangle, is made up of precast concrete chamber units. It will hold the water, infiltrate it into the ground, and slowly release it to an 18-inch outlet pipe. And that outlet pipe is outlined in blue here, and it discharges onto 60 Brook Street. The underground system will manage stormwater runoff for the 2 through 100-year design storm events, which is required by the town. And in fact, our modeling indicates that stormwater runoff will be reduced for each of these design storm events as it discharges to Jacobs Brook ultimately, as compared to existing conditions. Reduction of stormwater runoff alludes to the possible improvement of flooding concerns for the area. In other words, less water is expected in the proposed condition to drain directly to Jacobs Brook than in existing conditions. The infiltration system will discharge onto a riprap apron in this area here on 60 Brook Street. A temporary easement for construction and permanent drainage and maintenance easement on 60 Brook Street are proposed in support of the development for 230 Newington Road. It's for the right to drain, essentially. All stormwater pipes and conveyance structures are sized to safely pass the 25-year design storm event, which exceeds town and state requirements. It's typically the 10-year. The pipes are sized for the 25-year here. And finally, the stormwater and grading design fully satisfies the town and Connecticut deep water quality volume and runoff reduction requirements. Here's the technical plan for utilities. The site is, as I mentioned earlier, served by public utilities. From Newington Road, this includes an MDC water and sanitary sewer mains, Eversource electric, Connecticut natural gas, and telecommunication services. In light blue, it might be a little difficult to see, but in light blue, that represents a 4-inch domestic water service entering from the driveway, which provides individual laterals to each of the 6 buildings. The darker blue line is for a dedicated hydrant line for fire protection. And 2 hydrants are proposed. One is located in the town's right-of-way near the driveway entrance, and the second is located centrally in the site, which was requested by the fire marshal. As I mentioned before, the plans provide truck turning movements as well, and they demonstrated enough area for the fire truck to maneuver the site. Sanitary sewer flows from 4 of the buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6, are collected at an on-site underground pump station in this area here and conveyed by a force main to the gravity system. It's this green line wrapping around the site. which buildings 1 and 2 also discharge. And then finally, all the effluent will discharge by gravity to the MDC-owned main in Newington Road. And we are currently coordinating design review and approvals with the MDC for water and sewer. The yellow line represents a natural gas connection line that's connecting to a backup generator for the sanitary sewer pump. The generator is 2.5 feet wide by 4 feet long by 2.5 feet tall and will sit on a concrete pad and be connected to a transfer switch on Building 3's eastern building piece in this area here. Eversource will provide underground primary service, those are the red lines, from a pole off of Newington Road to a new transformer on site, and then secondary lines and individual meters will be provided at each building. And before I turn over to our traffic engineer, I just wanted to go over erosion sediment control really quickly. The plans include a comprehensive erosion sediment control plan that complies with the latest Connecticut guidelines for soil and sedimentation control and all of town requirements. The plan includes inlet protection such as silt sacks. This is a detail up here. For stormwater structures such as catch basins, silt fence. You can see a picture here of that dark silt fence. Along clearing limits and down gradient perimeters and reinforced straw, bale, or silt fence barriers upslope of Jacobs Brook. So there's a double barrier protection between the site's construction and the sensitive resources of the wetlands in Jacobs Brook. And then finally, erosion control blankets, as you can see in this picture here, will be provided on slopes steeper than a 3-to-1 and in areas of concentrated flow so that the vegetation has a chance to establish before it gets eroded away. And with that, I want to turn it over to my colleague Nick to talk about our traffic study.
Thanks, Lauren. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Moss, a registered professional engineer with Fuss & O'Neill. So for the traffic impact of this building, we went through the typical process of a traffic study for the town and for the state of Connecticut. This involved first looking at the intersections that would be impacted by the site, of which there was one that was included, which is up at the intersection of Newington Road and New Britain, up past Stop and Shop near CVS. We then took a look at the traffic. We counted traffic at that intersection as well as along Newington Road, and we grew the traffic into the future when the building is expected to be completed, 2028, and contacted the Connecticut Department of Transportation to get a growth rate that they found acceptable. We also included other nearby developments. There's one up on New Britain Road that is not currently built, so we included its traffic separately in our study. Then we took a look at the trip generation that was expected for this building. For the 54 low-rise multifamily dwelling units, we used information from the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, which is an industry standard, and found that in the weekday morning peak hour, approximately 25 vehicle trips are expected. And in the weekday afternoon peak hour, approximately 28 vehicle trips are expected. There's approximately 1 vehicle trip every 2 minutes. And of course, those trips are split between vehicles entering and vehicles exiting the site, and they're also split between vehicles going north on Newington Avenue and vehicles going south on Newington Avenue. So if you're standing anywhere other than the driveway entrance, you're never actually going to see 25 or 28 vehicles. After that, we added all of those trips together, the trips from the existing traffic, the trips from the growth in traffic over time, trips from other nearby developments that were not included, and then the trips from this project. And we did traffic analysis at both the driveway entrance and at the intersection of Newington and New Britain to the north. And we found that these trips added to that intersection were less than a 1% increase in traffic at Newington and New Britain, which is a very small amount. and also is generally well below what you would even see as a daily fluctuation in traffic if this project were not to happen, from a Tuesday to a Wednesday to a Thursday, for example. We also looked at the amount of delay that currently or would exist at Newington and New Britain in the future were this project not to happen and were it to happen, and found that the difference between those two was that the level of service would not change. The level of service in this case being a grading scale, A through F, of how much delay drivers can expect. We did, however, note that in the existing condition, there are some concerns about the delay at Newington and New Britain. I think everybody who drives through that intersection may understand that. And so even though there was no impact by this development, we took a look at anything that could be done to help that case. We had one possible recommendation, which was to look at some signal timing improvements, which currently the intersection has a pedestrian crossing that operates all on its own. Pedestrian presses the button, it stops vehicles in all directions, and all the pedestrians go. In many places around Connecticut, including within West Hartford, many intersections are being converted to concurrent pedestrian crossings, which allow pedestrians to cross at the same time as vehicles, and the vehicles have to yield to the pedestrians. And this is more efficient for the vehicles and more efficient for the pedestrians. So that's something that we modeled, and we found that with that change at Newington and New Britain, some of the existing delays could be mitigated, and the result would be a slightly better operating intersection in the future, even with this project. Something else that's very important to talk about from a traffic perspective is the safety and how this project may impact traffic safety in the study area. The table at the top shows the crash history of the study area up at Newington and New Britain. We found that in the 2022, 23, and 24 years, which are the three kind of complete data years that we had when we did the study, there were an average of 13 crashes per year at this intersection. When we say at the intersection, that kind of includes a buffer in either direction, because often the intersection has an impact not directly within the bounds of the crosswalks. And we found that many of those crashes were actually related to the CVS driveway that's pointed out in the arrow there. And that was because you can kind of see that there's a queue of vehicles coming down Newington Road. There's often a queue there. And because of the queue of vehicles waiting to turn left, if somebody's coming south on Newington Road, they try to turn into the CVS driveway and don't see that there's another vehicle coming north in the right turn lane. So that's an existing issue that we found. And we also noted that because of the low number of vehicles generated by Honeycomb's development that are not expected to increase the northbound queues at this intersection by more than one vehicle length, that the development would not have any impact on this existing crash. One final thing, we looked at the site distance from the proposed driveway. We looked at this for a design speed of 40 miles per hour, which is 5 to 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit along this section of Newington Road, because people do go faster, and we want to make sure that it's possible to get out of the driveway with the way that people are actually driving. And we found that the site distance was met, looking in both directions. So if you're looking left, if you're looking right, you can see far enough to get out without impacting other people and causing them to come screeching to a halt. So I will conclude that portion with the traffic study, and by saying that in my professional opinion, as a traffic engineer, this project will not have an impact to the traffic operations of the study area and will not cause any safety issues.
Good evening, Tom Arcari from Quisenberry Arcari Malik, 195 Scott Swamp Road, Farmington, Connecticut. We are the architects for the project. We're happy to be doing another project here in the community. We've had the opportunity to do many multifamily projects for private and public entities. When we start a project, particularly like Madison Acres, sometimes and many times we really like to start from the inside out because we're creating homes. The best part of this whole project is we're creating a community of 64 new homes for people who live in West Hartford. So we took a hard look at what would it be like, what would the experience be for each particular resident? And then how do we create building blocks that we can build upon? You can see that the approach we take in each of these units, residences, is that we want to design these homes so that they're in keeping with the current luxury type marketplace. So many of the things you'll see in this case, a 2-bedroom unit, in this case, a 1-bedroom unit, is that the biggest feature is open plan living. Kitchen, dining, living room are all together. Fosters a better open space, allows more light deeper into the unit, a bright experience, and then private bedrooms, in this case, at the front of the residences. The homes will all have distinct entryways, entry vestibules. They will have amenities. In this case, this is the upper plan, so you can see you come up the stair. They have adequate or excessive storage, and all the units have internal amenities such as washer dryer. We start with a balanced palette, a fairly neutral palette, so that each of the future residents can customize it the way they do. So then we take these building blocks and we put them together to create the structures. So as you saw in the site plan, there were 6 different structures of different sizes. These building blocks are put together, and the way they're combined allows us to create interstitial spaces between the buildings on the site, so that you not only have exceptional interior experience, but you have interpersonal spaces between the structures. So inside and an exterior space, including porches and rear porches. Here is an axonometric of all the structures, and you can see that the building blocks are put together to create various building sizes. And in order to shape and form those buildings, we decided to look to the original precedent, the Madsen Farm, to use simple forms, simple gables, to break up the scale of the buildings and create amenities that you would see on a farm. With that in mind, we used a modern farmhouse aesthetic to create the structures themselves. You'll see that the structures are no more than 2 stories in height, again with simple gable forms, porches so that every residence has an outdoor experiential space, and a clear dedicated entrance. There's transition space between the parking spot and the unit, so a safe, defensible space. There are spaces where residents can just sit and talk with their neighbors. We used a simple palette, white structures. The buildings will be comprised of durable, cementitious paneled materials. So that's low maintenance and long lifespan for the homeowners. The windows will have black accents, doors will be black as well. And every house has a door to the street. One of the exciting things about this scheme is it creates all of these, interstitial spaces between the units. So it's not, you access the houses from, access the site via the central parking corridor, but you access your unit through these little front entry yards that the houses look onto. These are some of the materials that would be a part of the development. As I mentioned, the white fiber cement clapboard siding, the vertical board and batten siding, PVC fencing, and then the roof architectural shingles. Over the years, we've had a real pleasure working with the town's design review board. We worked hand in hand with them, and it's been a real collaboration. One of the things that came out of that exercise was development of the scale of the buildings, but also development of a community that is going to be very sustainable in a common sense way. The buildings are going to have a very tight building envelope. They are going to have durable, long-lasting materials with low embodied energy that they're made from. And they're going to be heated and cooled by air source heat pumps. So it'll be a highly efficient residential community. This is a rendering of one of the buildings from the street. I mentioned our working relationship with DRAC. We had originally proposed this building to have an end elevation, and DRAC, working with them, wanted us to make the end of the building look like another house marching down the street. One of the things we asked for relief along Newington Road was reduction of the setback from 40 feet to 34 feet. But if you looked at the site plan, the front of our building, the end of our building, lines and reinforces the existing street wall against 230. And we're not only doing that physically or dimensionally, we're doing that architecturally. And again, this is shifted, but you can see that the scale of the existing adjacent home is to the left. The one to the right is the same two-story scale, and the end of the building was made to look like a single-family residence to match the camera of houses down the street. Overall, we're really excited about the scale of this community. You can see how it really looks like a number of small homes just built side by side. We think it's going to be a wonderful place to live and a great experience. And again, a beacon for other developers to follow in the community. And with that, I will turn it back over to Robin to summarize.
So I did want to mention that we did do outreach into the community. You have a report in your materials dated 12/23/25. On 12/5, Mr. Caprio met with the Elmwood Business Association. He did a quick presentation, and his comments indicate he thought it was well received. On 12/17/25, there was a neighborhood meeting at the Elmwood Community Center. The applicant had sent out approximately 60 invitations to neighbors based on a 500-foot radius around the entire site. And that they had plenty of notice. It was about 4 weeks before the meeting itself took place. Approximately 15 people attended. It was a good back and forth dialogue with the presenting team and the applicant. There were some concerns. I think that it's fair to say most of the concerns had to do with drainage issues in the neighborhood and what this might do for those concerns. Someone else had indicated that they found that the new development on the 60 Brook Street to the east behind us in the industrial area resulted in some lights that were more disturbing than they were pleasurable for some of the neighbors. And we followed up with the owner of that property, who has since readjusted the lights and changed the angle and improved the situation for the neighbors. And then I think it's also fair to say that there were a number who expressed significant strong positive feelings because of the need for this type of housing in West Hartford. So all that information is in your file. In summary, I'd just like to note the reviews that have come in. You've heard that we went before DRAC. We worked with DRAC. On December 30, they gave a unanimous recommendation of support, finding the application consistent with its performance criteria. And if you would. I think it's important to note two of the comments that they made when you are considering the suitability of this plan for a special development district, given the design criteria that you have to think about under section 17744. And they noted that the relationship of the proposed buildings to the site and adjoining neighborhood is appropriate. Their design, in particular, site placement and architecture, are compatible with existing building typology, particularly with respect to how the proposed building facing Newington Road reads from the street. Second, the proposed landscaping is of high quality and quantity. A good mixture of plantings ranging from street, flowering, and evergreen trees to shrubs has been effectively utilized to create attractive streetscape and appropriate screens adjoining land uses. So that was DRAC, that was unanimous. We went to the Inland Wetland Agency. They unanimously approved the application for the wetland permits. There's nothing terribly exciting in their decision to read to you. The neighbors were there, and some of them did express drainage concerns. And in particular, there were some concerns about wet basements that they were experiencing, and they felt that those concerns derived from past development that had been approved from in town. We were able to assure them that, and you heard it tonight from our engineer at Fuss & O'Neill, that there is nothing about this plan as designed that will contribute or have any negative impacts to the amount and quality of the water leaving our site. So whatever existing concerns there are, we will not be increasing those in any way. Our system is tightly designed. It's been reviewed by the town engineering staff, and they are satisfied with the computations, and we did have to make some changes after their initial comments came through. Nonetheless, after that meeting, we did approach the town staff and said, look, this is an issue. I'm not sure it's our issue, but obviously there are concerns out there, and Mr. Dumais certainly agreed and has been very diligent, excuse me, in following up both with the engineering staff and has actually walked Jacobs Brook behind our property on the abutting property on 60 Brook Street since the time of that wetland meeting and tonight's hearing. And he did notice that there was some trees that had fallen on Jacobs Brook on the 60 Brook Street property. And we have followed up with the owner of that property who has agreed to remove those. There's no indication it's been contributing to a problem, but nonetheless, it's important that anything that might possibly be an issue be addressed. So that we are doing that, and we'll stay in touch with neighbors as needed. There was also a TP&Z referral, and important also for your consideration as to whether or not this is appropriate zone change and SDD application to approve. The Town Plan and Zoning Commission, their jurisdiction and their obligation is to give you a recommendation after considering the impact of any proposed special development district with regard to the standards of the town's planning, plan of conservation and development. And they, too, unanimously approved the recommendation that you have before you. And when they did so, they found it specifically to be consistent with and furthering the overall vision of the plan of conservation and development, and noted that the proposed development is consistent with the neighborhoods and housing section goals and strategies to, quote, enhance and maintain West Hartford's existing neighborhoods and encourage diversity of housing types and costs to provide access and availability of housing options to current and future residents. And the next one is to encourage appropriate development and redevelopment within transitional zones between current commercial and residential boundaries in a manner that promotes pedestrian-friendly, contextually sensitive design at an appropriate scale that enhances and complements the quality of the neighborhoods. I think it's fair to say that that epitomizes the aesthetic and design achievements that we've been able to put forth before you for your consideration with this development. In terms of staff reviews, all planning, engineering, and fire department reviews are in, and they have all indicated that any concerns or issues that they had at all have been satisfied. There are no further comments. So finally, we did set out in our application letter the manner in which this application, as designed, meets the criteria of your special development district regulation under section 17744. I won't go through reading them all, but we do feel very strongly that this is an application that is worthy of your positive consideration. So with that, happy to answer any questions you have. I certainly hope you will approve this application this evening.
Thank you, Attorney Pearson and team. We have a very good overview. We are going to go to public comment first, and then council can ask questions. While you're doing that, I'm going to read into the record letter dated, as Attorney Pearson said, letter dated January 16, 2026, from Town Plan and Zoning Commission recommending approval. Letter dated December 30th, 2025, from Design Review Advisory Committee recommending approval. And letter dated January 6, 2026, from the Capital Region Council of Governments, finding no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. Beth Rocco has signed up to speak, so Beth, come on up, say your name and address for the 3 minutes. And if there's anybody else that would like to speak to this public hearing, you can come up after Ms. Rocco.
Madam Mayor and town councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'll try to talk fast. I am very involved in trying to look at concepts for senior housing. And there has recently been one senior housing survey implemented, and there will be a much more robust one included in an application for making West Hartford an age-friendly community. A development like this speaks to the heart of seniors. Seniors could live on the first floor of this type of townhouse without much trouble. We have many seniors living in large colonial two-story homes who want to stay in town, and they do not see anything that they could move into. If you look at this particular property, it is basically an industrial wasteland. Most of us didn't even know it existed there. So go to Stop and Shop, Dollar Tree, what is it, Crazy Bruce's, and look south. That is exactly where this community will be built. I do not know if preference will be given to West Hartford residents, and I don't know if we have any means for that, but this is on the Newington town line, and it may very well be attractive to Newington residents as well. I would speak to the fact that I would like to see more two-bedroom units in the proposed design. We have plenty of luxury apartment buildings that have been built largely as one-bedroom units, and I think people need something different, whether they have a young child or whether they're a senior who wants to age in place. If you want to age in place, believe me, if you're 94, you will need an aide to help you, and that aide has to have a private bedroom or a small den in the design. I'm looking forward to more developments like this in town, and I think the innovation is to be applauded. I do have here, and I don't know if it's appropriate because I forwarded this letter from Kevin Ryan to the town council, and you have received it.
We have. It's with the town clerk.
Okay.
Thank you.
And he was not able to attend tonight. He works with me on a subcommittee of the Senior Citizens Advisory Commission, and he had some facts and figures and other things speaking to what seniors would like to see. So again, I think Honeycomb has shown itself in the Camelot to deliver a nice piece of property, and I think this is something that is appealing. I can't say that I appreciate the brutalistic architecture of a lot of the large apartment buildings that have gone up in town, and that is exactly the term I use when I talk about them. This speaks more to why people moved to West Hartford. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rocco. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to this public hearing? Okay. Mr. Davidoff, Mr. Town Clerk, other than the mentioned letter from Kevin Ryan, was there any other written comments that you've received?
Madam Mayor, the only letter was that of Mr. Ryan, which was received today, and as he indicated, he was in support of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. All right, I've seen no other public comment. Questions for the town council? I don't know if you want to, I'm sorry. No, I just was going to open it up to the council for questions. This is an 830G. I will, just to summarize, and so the real, and maybe Mr. Dodge can clarify a little bit, but the real, I think the real sort of point we have is really overseeing the SDD and the variances for the SDD. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Mayor. This is a traditional SDD application. It is subject to 830G, which shifts the town's burden should the town deny it. All of the traditional requirements of an SDD would apply to this in terms of the representations that the applicant is making. But in terms of your denial, the only basis for that would be if there was a determination that any legitimate health and safety issues outweighed the town's need for affordable housing.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Okay, Ms. Lazarus.
I just wanted to clarify, I'm allowed to ask a question that's not related to SDD, correct? We're still in the public hearing space. Okay, great. All right, so my question, sorry, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, I had a question for Mr. Black. About the, you said you're working with the state on a first-time home buyer program? Is that what you're
Mr. Brown,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Mr. Brown.
That's okay.
Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, you said you were working with the state on first-time home buyer program. This is for sale property for affordable housing for first-time home buyer programs.
It doesn't have to be first-time home buyer.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But that definitely is a part of what we expect it will be.
Okay.
And if you want, I can get into more detail on the program.
I just have a few questions.
Sure.
So you said, we all know that people buy homes because they're looking for shelter and they're also hoping to build generational wealth. You used the term perpetually affordable. Can you please explain that?
Sure. There will be a deed restriction on the land, a land use restriction agreement. It's a little bit different the way it functions in terms of traditional affordable rental. So I'll describe to you the way that it will work. I'll give you the one example of someone who's earning at or below 80% of area median income, and we finish the development is built in sometime in late 2027, early 2028, and Mr. Jones is our first applicant. He meets our income requirements, and he is at 80% of area median income, and let's say that's about $80,000 projecting forward. The way it works is Mr. Jones might get down payment assistance, likely will, to help reduce his mortgage. If he's using current first-time homebuyer funds. Those are actually forgiven to Mr. Jones if he stays in the home for 10 years. So that is one way that Mr. Jones can build equity in that example. The other way is two other ways. One, if he sells in 10 years, presumably there's been some natural income growth that has happened. He then can sell it to someone earning 80% of area median income 10 years forward. So let's say area median income at 80% 10 years from 2028 is $90,000 a year. So there's some, that purchase price would go up incrementally. So that's a second way that you can build equity. The third way that you build equity is like anyone else would, which is by paying down your mortgage on a monthly basis. So you're reducing principal. So there's three general ways that someone can build equity in their home.
All right. Now, the resale, if they try to resale it, there is a limit on how much they can resale their property for. Is that correct? As part of that
Yes. So
home buyer program?
The prospective buyer 10 years from now, in my example, has to income qualify at then 80%, in my example, area median income. And that purchase price is based on, it's formulaic. So you should only be spending, in this case, it's a little different from rental. It's usually up to 37% of your gross income should go towards your housing costs, which includes mortgage, insurance, taxes.
Thank you. Yeah. So again, through you, Madam Mayor. So the resale is not based on the market.
Correct. There can be no windfall.
That's what I wanted to make clear to the public. The value of the property is not based on the market. So if someone tries to resale, the house next to you could be sold for $1 million, but that property right there, it can only be sold for a certain amount.
That is this program, yes, that's the way it works.
That's how the program works. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Lazarus. Are there other, Mr. Wang?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask a follow-up question. Thank you for that. What happens as the deed restriction starts to close out? Do you get really weird market dynamics, on year 35, or, what happens? Does the value spike, and how do you deal with that spike?
This is a new program, so it'd be conjecture on my part to know what that is. I don't think it's been tested, to be quite honest.
But deed restrictions have existed for some time. I mean,
40 years.
Do we know? No, I mean, like, based on any other situations to your knowledge, for example, other developments that may have had deed restrictions that start to approach their end, or are we not even at that point in this entire country?
I can tell you how it works in rental housing by way of example. Typically, the way it works in rental housing is as you approach the end of a deed restriction. Camelot, for instance, there's a 50-year deed restriction. If I were getting to year 45, 48 of that deed restriction, there's likely some need for a capital event to occur. Systems are way beyond, in that example, their useful life. And so the state, the town likely wants to incentivize the purchaser, in my example, to keep it affordable. And so there will be some recapitalization of the property to renew that affordability. So in the rental example, that program's been around since 1986. It was created under Reagan's Tax Reform Act. And what has happened since 1986 is, to your point, is deed restrictions have burned off. In most cases, states and local government have found ways to preserve the affordability through incentivizing either the original owner-developer or future owner-developer to preserve it as affordable. In fact, in Connecticut today, you can get awarded in various programs points for what they call preservation.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Brown. Mr. Wang, do you have any more questions?
I got a bunch, but I don't want to
Yeah.
monopolize.
Okay. The state ownership program was legislated. When was that put in place?
It's been around, but really in a very small way. DOH has just recently rolled out this more robust program. I think we are currently the largest development of this type in the state.
Thank you, that's what I thought. Okay, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also have some questions on some of the financing from the home buyer point of view. This is innovative and new and exciting, but do want to really hear about how it actually is going to work in practice. The HOA type fee, you mentioned that there's going to be a reserve fund, but do we have any idea how much that will be, whether that is subsidized? And also, who is sort of running the condos at that point? Who's the
owners?
The owners will continue.
Just like any typical HOA.
Okay.
You would have the owners. Honeycomb is proposing to have a seat on that HOA to ensure some professional involvement. There will also be a professional management company that the HOA, like most HOAs, would hire. Albray, for example.
Sure.
Other communities in West Hartford, Bloomfield that you can think of have professional management companies. The HOA, though, that we are pre-funding would have several $100,000 pre-funded.
So through you, Madam Mayor, so initially, though, do you expect that there will be an HOA fee of some sort?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's built into all of the financial modeling assumptions. The state requires you to do that.
And there's some limitation, I assume, on how high that can be based on affordability?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Any other? Mr. Wayne. Let me just make sure everybody else asks, and then, yeah. And Ms. Boone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You mentioned the case of Mr. Jones, who's the first applicant to meet the eligibility requirements. Is that how the decisions will be made? Will it be a first come, first serve, or will there be a lottery? What is the process by which you'll figure out who is able to buy these homes? Because I think there's going to be a great demand there, beautiful and a great part of town. I'm just curious how that's going to work.
Fantastic question. We're currently working with a CDFI that provides, as I mentioned, first-time home buyer and also housing counseling. I didn't know this until I embarked on this process. They have waiting lists of people that are already pre-qualified but cannot afford anything in West Hartford. And so, at least at present, it would be first come, first serve in terms of those who qualify. I can tell you, and I don't know if this will end up happening at Madsen, the Camelot, for instance, when we opened up rentals, we had 3,000 applicants for the 30% AMI apartments that I mentioned to you. In that case, there were so many that it would not have been fair. We went to a third-party lottery system.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. I think Ms. Harris, Dr. Harris.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of questions, and you may have answered this, but maybe I didn't understand it. What would prevent somebody from getting into one of these units and then renting it out?
I think just like any HOA, this is a traditional HOA. I think we need to put that into context. This is no different from any other HOA other than that there are income restrictions. So there are rules and regulations, and just like any other HOA, the HOA polices the fact that that is not allowed to happen.
So that is not allowed to happen?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. I had a question also through you, Madam Mayor. I believe that I read, I was curious about a little bit about the financing on this. You're saying that the state is completely, I'm not sure you're saying completely. Can you explain how the state is financing this and what that really means?
Sure. So the way it works is currently DOH, the Department of Housing, will fund up to $150,000 per home of gap financing. So I'll keep my examples consistent. In the example of Mr. Jones, if it costs $400,000, as Attorney Pearson noted, this development would not be possible without the DOH financing. If it costs the developer, all of the uses are $400,000 to construct that home. but Mr. Jones can only afford $250,000 mortgage, then DOH provides the difference, the subsidy the gap financing it's called, of $150,000 to allow that home to be constructed and for Mr. Jones to afford to live in it. That's the way it works.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask one follow-up? Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I thought I read this in there, but I just, that there was 9% tax credits.
No, that's a rental program.
Okay, all right, maybe I didn't read it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Hersher. Mike? Okay, other counselors? No, no, I have to go. Mr. Lyons?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, looking at the width of the parking lot in back, when you kind of driving up the northern section, am I right that it's about 54 feet wide, including the parking spots?
Yeah, please speak into the mic for the record.
Tom Arcari with QA&M Architecture. It's 58 feet, so 18-foot parking aisles, which is pretty much standard throughout most of the state of Connecticut. We've asked for a waiver from West Hartford standard of 20 to 18. And then the drive aisle is 22 feet in between. Again, that's pretty standard in many developments throughout the state of Connecticut for private communities such as this.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think 18 feet is more than enough for a modern car. If you had antique cars there, it might be a different conversation. But I just worry a little bit about a 40-foot fire truck having to turn around back there. I guess they'd be backing in and out. No big deal, just curious. These are not basements, right? They're on a slab, or are they basements?
These are on a slab.
So, okay, and then I sat on zoning for 2.5 years before I sat here, and I've heard this question from residents, and I love resident testimony because I learned so much from folks who testify. Two-bedroom options. Do the numbers work? I'm not a builder, but I have a basic understanding of, how you're pricing these units. Is there a scenario where somebody could come in and say, I want to pay the higher price? Could a one unit be made, or could there be an adjustment for additional two-bedroom units, or do the numbers just simply not work?
Lewis Brown, Honeycomb Real Estate Partners. It's a fair question. We played around with a lot of it's like Tetris almost to get the numbers to work, and we landed at this unit mix. And Ms. Rocco is here. I did take time and I met with both Kevin and she multiple times, going over needs, and I'm certainly mindful of that. This was the unit mix that worked here. But I appreciate the question and candidly would like to be able to do more.
Mr. Brown, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, Mr. Wang.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of questions, just going back to just staying on the finance piece.
Well, just a second. As I started the conversation, we are overseeing the special design district, and that is what you can ask, limited question on maybe how the financing will support the project, but it's really not, we don't really have, that's not what we're ruling on and voting on tonight. So just be mindful of that.
Okay, fair enough. Can I ask one clarifying question? Just because in the documents you provided us, it said that it's first come, first serve, but in your comments just now, you said that in the past you had to resort to a lottery. So is that set in stone, or it will depend on the level of demand?
Yeah, I was using, Camelot was the example where we went to the lottery and that was rental. Here, I'm not anticipating that. And so, right now, as I said, it's first come, first serve for those that meet the income qualifications and that go through the various levels of home ownership qualifications.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask some design questions? All right. Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So was there consideration for more space for families? When I look at the architectural plans and the renderings, and I'll note this location is sort of in a playground, desert. It's quite far away from any kind of parks or playgrounds. we have, could a small play space for children be integrated into here? And the second part of that question is, I do note that you are providing more parking than our town requires. If this is income restricted, given the cost of vehicle ownership, do we need that many parking spaces? Could some of that parking space be used for families, for children? Or alternatively, could some of the green space, for example, have a play structure or something, just to provide something for families?
Laura Mello from Fuston O'Neill. I believe your first question was regarding open space for the site. So the town requires 250 square feet of open space per home. And there is a plan included in the plan set that shows that we're just at that amount. I believe it was like just slightly over. So in terms of like recreational space, there's space between the buildings. There's a couple areas that are like 20 by 20 that people can gather. But no, we did not plan a playground because those areas tend to be much larger, especially with the dimensional requirements for safety around the play areas. They tend to start getting really large, and there wasn't enough space on the site for that type of program. And then can you remind me the second part of your question?
It's all related to how to make the most of a limited amount of space. So it appears that you're providing more parking than is required, given that this is for income limited buyers. We know how expensive a car is these days. Could some of that space perhaps be used differently? Again, for example, for a play space for kids, or for more permeable surface, green space, things that can help ameliorate flooding. Just thinking of more creative ways that some of that space could be used. Because right now I'm looking at it, and a wooded lot is being turned to mostly impermeable surface.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And you are correct. We are adding a lot of impervious, especially compared to existing conditions. In terms of the parking, we're proposing 1 space per 1 bedroom unit and 1.5 spaces per 2 bedroom units. So those two bedroom units can have a little bit more space for a car. Naturally, it won't work out that way, depending on who's living there. Did you want to answer another part?
Well, I just talked with the applicant. Two things. First of all, remember, for instance, it was suggested that we needed more elderly housing opportunities so that you could have a nurse's aide, for instance, come back and forth to a unit and be able to stay overnight and be there. We don't know who's going into these units. It may very well be that any 2-bedroom unit definitely requires 2 cars because you've got an aide, for instance, coming. It's not simply a question of whether the people who are living there can afford more than 1 car. So the number of spaces that we have here really does work for what the applicant expects could be a mix within this development. But Mr. Brown also said to me, yeah, sure, we'll take this under advisement and look at it. We're happy to do that. But right now, this is what we've got and what we're asking for approval for this evening.
Thank you.
Well, we do want to move on. We do have and there's people here that are here for other things. So if there's any pressing other question, though, you should ask it. But again, remember, this is 830G. Or the STD is our lane.
I wouldn't mind asking another question.
Okay, go ahead. One more.
All right. Just going back to the impervious surface question again. How accurate are these water flow projections through you, Madam Mayor? Again, we're replacing a forested surface, a forested plot with, a lot of asphalt, a lot of buildings, and the projections state that we only expect roughly a 10% decrease in peak flow. Is that realistic, or we know that sometimes these estimates don't turn out to be true in the end? Are there post hoc analyses that show that these projections tend to be spot on, or what's the buffer? Because we do have flooding issues in this town, and our plan of conservation design does talk a lot about flooding and impervious surface.
So yes, that's an excellent question, and we hear it a lot when we come up in front of commissions and town councils. The site was reviewed by town staff, and it was approved by the Wetlands Commission. They reviewed all the calculations that we provided for the stormwater system. It essentially works as a large pool underground, and it stores the water and slowly releases it. Right now, what I can presume is happening in Jacobs Brook, which is the nearby water course, is that all the water is hitting it at once and causing the flood elevations to rise all at the same time. The system underground allows the water to collect in a pool and slowly be released, so it allows Jacobs Brook to lower over time as the site is slowly releasing, and it's not peaking at the same time. That's what we would call it. So we have looked at the water calculations extensively. Peak runoff flow, which is the main problem causing the flooding, in my opinion, from the area, is being reduced by a minimum of 10% in each design storm, including the 100-year. I believe you had one more part to your question, or did I answer it all?
Just pointing again that our plan of conservation design talks about our increased flooding risk in this community, and I just want to make as sure as possible that flooding risk is properly mitigated.
Yep. So the design storm events that we used are given to us by NOAA. They're the most recent stormwater projections. We're using the most recent data. I believe it was last updated a few years ago. And in terms of this development, because we're reducing peak flows, we're actually improving the amount of water that's going to Jacobs Brook versus what's out there today. So you will see less water from this property running into Jacobs Brook during the highest points of the rain events. So it is improving that drainage condition, or it's projected to improve that drainage condition for the area.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think you answered that question. All right. With that, I think all the questions that have been pertinent have been asked. And we are going, is there any closing remarks that you want to say, Attorney Pearson?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, Mr. Brown.
Sorry. I just want to say thank you for your time tonight, and we hope that after tonight we'll be working on another impactful development in town. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And with that, we'll close the public hearing. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will start the town council meeting. So hurry. I'm calling the January 27th Town Council meeting, 7:30 PM, Town Council meeting to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we start the council meeting, unfortunately, there is moments where that demand speaking to the incredible importance of that moment. And this is a moment, I think, that demands moral clarity. What we are witnessing in Minneapolis is profoundly disturbing. In a matter of weeks, 2 American citizens have been killed during federal law enforcement operations in the same city. That fact alone should alarm every one of us. Alex Jeffrey Preddy was an American citizen, a registered nurse who cared for veterans in intensive care. He was not an enemy of the state, yet he is dead, killed in broad daylight during a federal operation while appearing to assist another demonstrator with eyewitnesses and serious unanswered questions about the use of lethal force. What followed is just as alarming. Before facts were established or an independent investigation could begin, the government rushed to label the victim a terrorist and an assassin. That narrative is already unraveling. To take a life and then smear the person who was killed is not justice, it is propaganda. One more fact cannot be ignored. Less than 3 weeks earlier, another Minneapolis resident, Renee Nicole Good, that I spoke to 2 weeks ago at our council meeting, was killed during a federal operation. The response to that killing was not to pause, regroup, retrain, or investigate, but to surge more federal agents into the city and escalate force. That matters, because what followed was not a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was a choice. After witnessing the killing of Renee Good, federal leadership chose to expand the very tactics that led to her death. Alex Jeffrey Preddy was killed as a result of that choice. And let's be clear about the broader danger. Federal ICE agents are being sent a message that they can act with near total impunity because the federal government will immediately come to their defense. No questions asked. That is the opposite of accountability, and it erodes the rule of law. This does not make communities safer. Minneapolis has spent years rebuilding trust after George Floyd's murder through accountability, transparency, and hard work. What we are seeing now replaces trust with fear, safety, and with escalation, and community policing with militarized force. We are also being told to doubt what we plainly see. Videos, eyewitness accounts, and lived experience are dismissed in favor of official narratives. George Orwell warned of this exact moment. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. That is the language of totalitarianism, and we are sliding toward it faster than any may want to admit. This comes on the heels of January 6th, when a violent attack on our democracy was followed not by accountability, but by a blanket pardon for roughly 1,400 rioters. When power protects its own, whether federal agents on street or insurrectionist mobs attacking the Capitol, the message is the same. Loyalty is rewarded, truth is optional, and consequences are for everyone else. This is not and should not be about partisan politics. It's about whether the law still constrains those who wield power. It is about whether constitutional rights apply to everyone or only when convenient. We have an obligation to care about the truth, about liberty, and about justice, especially when our own government becomes the greatest threat to the principles it is sworn to uphold. There has to be credible, full, independent, and transparent investigation that results in accountability. And accountability is not anti-law enforcement. It is the foundation of democracy. We owe it to the grieving families, we owe it to our communities, and we owe it to our country. All right, and I'm sorry, it's really challenging. Before I'm going to just segue into, actually, I'm going to go to the proclamation first, and then I'm going to segue into one direction on an item.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Can we do a roll call, please?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you. Good evening. Mayor Cantor.
Yes, I hear.
Councilor Harris.
Here.
Councilor Lazarus.
Present.
Counselor Lyons.
Here.
Counselor McGinnis.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Pullen.
Here.
Counselor Walters.
Here.
Counselor Wang.
Here.
Counselor Winograd.
Here.
All present. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Is Alexander Phipps here? Thank you, Alexander. Please join me at the podium. Today, January 27th, is Holocaust Remembrance Day. It is the day that marks the liberation of Auschwitz and Birkenau in 1945. And I'm joined by Mr. Phibbs, and I don't know if any of you saw the Current this morning, but it told the story of his family and his grandmother, who sounds amazing. And I think I had met her, but Ada Jens, and you can say the last name. Okay, Ushianowskis. She lived for 65 years in West Hartford, and she owned Cosmos International Food Market. She ran her own immigration office. She is currently 99 years old. I'm going to do the formal proclamation, and then I'd like Mr. Phibbs to give us a little, to address us. Whereas January 27th is observed as International Holocaust Remembrance Day, marking the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau in 1945 and honoring the 6 million Jewish men, women, and children murdered by Nazi Germany and its collaborators, as well as millions of others persecuted and killed because of hatred, bigotry, and intolerance. And whereas the Holocaust stands as one of the gravest moral failures in human history, made possible not only by brutality, but by silence, indifference, propaganda, and the systemic stripping away of human dignity. And whereas the lessons of the Holocaust are not confined to the past, we are reminded that genocide does not begin with mass murder. It begins with dehumanization, scapegoating, disinformation, and the erosion of democratic norms and the rule of law. And whereas in our time, anti-Semitism is again on the rise locally, nationally, and globally, and Jewish communities are facing fear, intimidation, and violence, making remembrance not only an act of memory, but an urgent call to conscience. And whereas Connecticut is home to powerful Holocaust legacies that illuminate both the horrors of that era and the courage of those who chose humanity in impossible circumstances, including the story of Ada Jens Ushkanowskis, sorry, a longtime West Hartford resident and Holocaust survivor whose father, Jacob Jens, risked and ultimately lost his life attempting to save others in the Vilna ghetto during World War II. And whereas despite unimaginable loss, Ada dedicated her life to helping refugees and immigrants rebuild their lives after the war, reminding us that resistance to hatred can take the form of service, compassion, and moral courage. And whereas the stories of survivors and their families teach us that heroism is often complex, imperfect, and deeply human, but that choosing to help others, even at great personal risk, remains one of the powerful acts of resistance against injustice. Whereas honoring the memory of the Holocaust requires more than reflection, it demands vigilance, education, and a collective commitment to speak against anti-Semitism, racism, and all forms of hatred whenever and wherever they may appear. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on behalf of the Town Council and the residents of West Hartford, I, Mayor Sherry G. Cantor, do hereby proclaim January 27, 2026 as Holocaust Remembrance Day in West Hartford and call upon all residents to remember the victims, honor the survivors, learn from the lessons of history, and recommit ourselves to protecting human dignity, defending democracy, and standing against hate in all its forms. And I'm going to kick it over to Alex.
I have these CDs from the Vilna Ghetto too.
Thank you, Mayor Cantor. As a grandson of Ada Gens, I want to thank you, not only for remembering the Holocaust, but for affirming why remembrance matters now. Through my research on the Vilna Ghetto, I have come to understand the Holocaust not as distant history, but as millions of individual lives. Teachers, doctors, artists, children, each with a name, a voice, and a future that was deliberately destroyed. I have read labor lists that decided who would live one more day, letters written in hiding, and testimonies from people who understood, often before the world did, that Dehumanization was the first warning sign. One of those voices was Gregory Shore, who wrote the following from the Vilna Ghetto. I fear for the future. I fear that there will be no one left to bear witness to the suffering. But we must survive, if only to remember. Someone must tell the world what has happened here, what humans are capable of doing to one another. The thought that this pain could be forgotten, erased, or denied is unbearable. My grandmother survived that world. Her father, Jacob Gens, faced impossible moral choices inside the ghetto, choices that remind us that heroism in such times is rarely simple, but always human. What made the Holocaust possible was not only brutality, but silence, propaganda, and the gradual acceptance of hatred as normal. Today, as anti-Semitism rises again and democratic norms are tested, Gregory's fears speak directly to us. Memory is a responsibility. Genocide does not begin with mass murder. It begins when people are reduced to slogans, scapegoats, and threats, while others look away. My grandmother believed that the answer to dehumanization was action, helping refugees, defending dignity, and refusing indifference. Honoring the victims of the Holocaust means doing the same, speaking early, standing visibly against hate, and ensuring that this suffering is neither forgotten nor denied. Remembrance is not only about what we recall, it is about what we choose to protect now and what we refuse to repeat.
I do want to also just say that on Sunday, there will be a Holocaust Remembrance Day ceremony in Town Hall in the hallway, 11 a.m. So if people want to join, thank you. It's sponsored by Voices of Hope, who does a lot of work in remembrance. Oh, Ronnie wants a photo. Thank you. Impossible segue, but before we begin tonight, I've been told by staff that item 7A, an ordinance regulating short-term rentals, is not ready yet and requires more work in committee in order to finalize language, and so I'd ask for a unanimous consent that it be removed from the agenda. Is there any objection? Okay, so hearing no objection, the item is removed from the agenda, and we will now go to public forum. Mr. Dodge, you want to? There's nobody signed up. Anybody that would like to speak to something on the agenda that wasn't the subject of a public hearing? Okay, seeing none, we will go to number 4, Ms. Pullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without objection, I move that items 5A, 7C through 7F, and 10A are placed on the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? Okay, hearing no objection, the items are placed on consent. Ms. Pullen?
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We will go to number 6. Ms. Pullen, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For item 6A, this is a motion to approve, subject to conditions, the application of Honeycomb Real Estate Partners, LLC, requesting a rezoning of approximately 2.49 acres at 230 Newington Road from an R6 One-Family Residence District Zone, IG General Industrial District Zone, and IE Exclusive Industrial Zone to RM1 Multifamily Residence District Zone with a Special Development District overlay for the redevelopment of the site into a new 54-unit, 100% for sale affordable housing multifamily residential community consisting of 6 two-story buildings, along with associated parking areas, storm drainage infrastructure, and landscaping. The development will qualify as assisted housing under General Statute Section 830G.
Second.
I did leave one for her. Okay. All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Attorney Dodge, can you present the conditions of approval?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I've handed around to the council the proposed conditions of approval. These are the standard conditions of approval that we adopt for all new STDs in town. I do want to just highlight a few provisions that are specific to this project. The first is condition 8, which has to do with Jacobs Brook Watercourse, which we discussed a little bit during the public hearing. As noted, there was some debris that was found in the brook, which we would like to see removed in conformance with our watercourse. Watercourse is a harder word to say than I thought. Watercourse ordinance, and so there's a requirement that prior to issuing any building permits, the applicant will ensure that any debris and excessive vegetation that impedes the flow of the water through that watercourse is removed. In addition, Madam Mayor, as was noted, this is an 830G application, and it's an affordable housing application, which will provide for sale, deed-restricted affordable units at or below 80%. All 54 units in the development will be provided at that rate. And there's a requirement that the applicant provide an affordability plan for review and approval by my office as part of this condition. In addition to that, Madam Mayor, as we discussed, there's going to be common interest ownership for the development. And there's a requirement that a document creating the common interest ownership community be received by my office, ensure that the deed restrictions are in place for the duration of the affordability period, and be approved by us. In addition, we talked a little bit about flooding, and there's a requirement that the applicant obtain an easement for the purpose of maintaining and replacing the stormwater drainage system that's required for the property. And that is it, Madam Mayor. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Are there any questions on the conditions, I guess? Would start there. Okay. All right, then we can go into talking about the whole application, and I don't know who would like to start. I know I would like to talk, but I'm sure a lot of us have comments on it, but. Okay, Mr. Winograd.
Not much to say about this project. It is just a joy to be able to vote on this. It was exciting when we saw it, when we heard about this plan. It is exactly what we need in town, and we've got the exact right developer. So have really no concerns about both that this is going to be a beautiful addition to our community, that it's going to be well done, and I can't wait for the opening. I missed the Camelot one. I was on vacation, and that's like one of my biggest regrets of the last few years, that I was out of town for that one. And I'm looking forward to being at this ribbon cutting and this tour, because I just know this is going to be the same kind of quality that we get from Honeycomb. So thank you very much for your dedication and to our community, and your trust and your work with our staff and everything else. And let me just point out that the fact that we're having a plan like this with no opposition from the public, legitimate concerns raised by neighbors about the sort of flooding issues, but really it's less about the project that I think about broader concerns. But other towns, this would be a full house of people complaining, and that's not what we are in West Hartford. So thank you, and I certainly will be supporting this.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I, too, will be supporting it. And again, having sat on zoning, I've had the good fortune to see this team present, get approved, and then follow through with some tremendous I don't like using the projects word, the P word either, for some reason. I seem to resist that word, but some made real investments in our community, and particularly Mr. Brown. Having known a little bit about your history and learning a little more about it tonight, it's moving to have somebody who is grown up in our community and has such a commitment to our community. So thank you for that. To paraphrase your wife, I feel you did land it on the aircraft carrier, and I'll be voting yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Anybody else? All right, Mr. Wang.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody who gave the presentation. I'm happy to see that we're going to have some affordable home ownership.
This is not necessarily my preferred way of achieving affordable homeownership, meaning through a subsidized manner. At least it's not coming from the town, it's coming from the state. But as far as the ability to provide something that people can build equity in and build a future in this town, I'm very happy about that. Just a few things that I would like to, just reiterate is I think there might be too much parking. It's a lot of space, and I don't want to dictate what you guys do with your property, okay? But maybe just please consider again, because some of that space could be used for other things, that might improve the livability of the area. I didn't want to take too much time, so offline I did speak with Town Manager Ledwith about road safety issues that may be related to this project. Lack of a crosswalk in this area, which I would love to see the town kind of work on as well. And frankly, it's walkable to the CT Fast Track, but there's no sidewalk past the Newington line, so I thought I'd bring that up as another potential issue or something that would further enhance this project. Ultimately, we are tasked with approving it on health and safety grounds, and I will be supporting the project. I just want to put out those additional thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Ms. McGinnis.
Through you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to say I'm approving this plan, but I'd like to say to Mr. Brown, I know your commitment to this town and how much you love it. I was at the grand opening for Camelot, and the apartments there are so nice. And as a matter of fact, I just drove by the other night and saw some people in their kitchen, and I was like, oh my God, like, that's just so wonderful that people have the opportunity to live in the center of West Hartford. It can be life-changing for people. I know the quality will be there, and I think that's something very important about affordable housing, is that it is nice, and it's something that people can be proud of. And the homeownership aspect, I think of some of the people saying, oh, do you rent? No, I own this. Like, that's a big deal. I remember the first house that I purchased, and there's just something about it. You really feel like you're setting up roots. So, there are things people ask us as counselors, like, what are you the most proud of over, time you've been on council, or mostly when we run for reelection. People ask us that. But this is the type of thing that, as a counselor, you say, I voted to approve this. I did not get to vote for the original approval of Camelot because I wasn't on the council, but I just think this is great. I think this is going to open up opportunities to a lot of people and, again, be life-changing. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you to your staff. And thank you for how much you care about West Hartford.
Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. Any other? Okay, Ms. Harris, Dr. Harris.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. So I am really happy to see that we are going to have affordable housing in this town. I mean, obviously, we have a huge housing crisis in the state and in the country. I think, having a project like this is important. I completely am opposed to the 830G, which we are doing this under. I understand that obviously we don't have the ability to control that. I don't think that if we had the choice that we should be changing zoning for a project like this, because I think that even though there is no opposition here tonight, it's hard to believe that people who are living in a single-family zoning district are happy with this type of project coming into their midst. However, I do understand that that's not something we control here at this table. So I will also be supporting it for the reasons I stated, that I think we do need affordable housing, and as far as the 830G, we don't really have control over that here.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Walters.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to say thank you to Mr. Brown and Honeycomb. This does, I mirror Mr. Winograd's appreciation and excitement that we had when we first saw this come across the table. I also have an appreciation, just real quick, for the architectural elements. I have appreciation for the affordability, obviously. I have appreciation for the way you are handling the stormwater and actually reducing the amount, which is required by law, obviously, but to do so in what amounts to an underground retention basin is pretty cool. And I think that given the area, given the needs of the community, that this is a great project, and I will be in support of it. Again, thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Ms. Pullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to echo the comments of my colleagues around the table and thanking Mr. Brown and the entire team. The presentation was really thorough, and the thoughtfulness that was put into the design is so apparent, like down to when we plant these, it's going to smell nice when you step on these leaves or berries. I think, I personally really appreciate all the thought that went behind planning out every element of this project, including the addition of parking that was added in after the DRAC review noted that there may not be enough spots for people who are coming to visit, those who live in a two-bedroom apartment, or to assist people who need help to remain in their own homes. So I do think that that is a helpful addition that was made after that. I also want to point out that in addition to this being really centrally located, specifically within a mile, you can get to Beachland Park, you can get to the Elmwood Community Center, you can get to the Trout Brook Trail, and you can get to the fast track that is on New Park, which has sidewalks the entire way, as well as the Faxon Library and a number of places to shop. So I think this is just really well located, completely underutilized space before, and I'm excited to see it come on board. I just really, again, want to express my gratitude for the team that put this together that's going to make home ownership available to more people in our town.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Anybody else? Okay, so Louis, you've done it again. We met several, it was 5 years ago maybe. And we're so lucky that you're ours, that you grew up here and your connections are here and you want to make this place a better place. And I'm just so grateful for all that you've seen and you have done, and your values and your commitment and your giving back is just so clear in everything you do. And I'm just really, really grateful to have you in our community, and I'm such a deep investor for all the right reasons and doing the right things. I want to thank our staff who has really worked hard, and Krista Gorski, who's here, and our economic development manager and her team, Todd Dumais, who worked really hard to help with this project, and of course our town manager, who welcomed this with open arms in a pretty incredible way. That leadership is so important. As you had said, when Camelot, all the bones, all the pieces, all the Tetris pieces, right, were put together for Camelot, that ARPA money was so important, and that was a real big commitment from the town. And Kristen managed that so well, and was very strategic in how that was invested. And out of that, I think, has come this. I don't know if Camelot hadn't been done, if we would be here. We also earned the incredible respect of the Department of Housing. They always watched us and said, yeah, you're doing great. But that particular project, she said, you guys are different. And it became a commitment and a real, I think, a conversation between you both, you and the commissioner, on how can we do home ownership now. And I honestly believe part of that program and that thought process about the home ownership program, she had been working on it, but it gelled with the ideas of this project. So I really, I'm just, again, agree with most everything that's been said here. You're developing a community, you're developing a neighborhood, you are giving people the opportunity to be homeowners when they probably couldn't otherwise do that. And I know that benefit is going to far outlast all of us, and I'm so grateful. So again, thank you to DRAC, thank you to TPZ, and all the volunteers that help us come to a great product. This is a phenomenal product, and the quality, just as Ms. Pullen had just said, the care and the finishes and the plantings, all of it has such care that went into it. Equal or better than many market rate developments that we've seen, and I'm just so grateful for that. All right, and with that, we will do a roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Lazarus.
Yes.
Councilor Lyons.
Yes.
Councilor McGinnis.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Poland.
Yes.
Councilor Walters.
Yes.
Councilor Wang.
Yes.
Councilor Winograd.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you so much, and congratulations. I just want to give an applause. All right, now we are going, and thank you to Corporation Council as well. I forgot, I did add my thank yous. I don't think I said that, sorry. We go to 6B, sorry, Ms. Pullen. So you just read it and then I'll.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 6B is consideration of an ordinance permitting recreational vehicles as an accessory use in existing single-family residence districts. Application of Michael Cervone seeking to Section 177-2 and 177-6C of the West Hartford zoning ordinances.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Mr. Cervone, thank you so much. Before we begin debate of this item, this is a little unusual. We haven't had this kind of dynamic before. I want to note for the record that the Town Plan and Zoning Commission issued an unfavorable recommendation under the Town Charter. Adoption of the proposed ordinance would therefore require a 2/3 vote of the council. I want to thank the applicant for your thoughtful and well-presented proposal. I believe the concerns raised are legitimate, and personally, I think aspects of this issue warrant further consideration. However, as drafted, the ordinance is too broad, and I myself am not prepared to support it in its current form. I would prefer that this matter be studied further in committee and to determine whether a more narrowly tailored ordinance can and should be considered. Before determining how the council wishes to proceed procedurally, I'd like to take a non-binding straw poll to gauge support for the ordinance as written. So if you would like to support the ordinance as written, please raise your hand. Okay, okay, so it does not have the support as written. Seeing that the ordinance doesn't appear to have that level of support as written for a necessary passage, I'll ask the Deputy Mayor for a motion to deny the application without prejudice. And because the denial is based on the council's desire to undertake further policy review rather than any deficiency in the application itself, to waive the application fee pursuant to Section 17750 of the Town Code. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded, and so now we can have any discussion. What I would recommend is that we refer this to committee and have a conversation in committee about how we can draft an ordinance that will that will have the support of the council with this, with a lot of the elements that you brought forward to us. And I think we all need to research it and understand it a little bit deeper. Obviously, there's a lot of legalese that goes into ordinances that are formed. And so usually that's where a lot of our ordinance will say, we have these elements that we want to put in, and now go to it, and we get this very, committed legal document that outlines that ordinance that we were trying to achieve. They're not always perfect, but we feel more comfortable with having that time in developing an ordinance that we have direct input into as well, but using yours as a foundation for further development. Any other comments? Okay, Ms. Lazarus.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you for the time, effort, and energy that you put into putting this together and coming here. And that's what it's all about. Residents being engaged and interested, and I really appreciate it. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lazarus, and we agree. I think we all agree. All right, and Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this is so interesting. I guess my understanding is this is only the second one that's happened, maybe this century, in 25 years, where it came from a citizen. And I just want to say for the record, I really wish I could have approved it as is. I could have voted yes as is. And a couple of things that I struggled with is I felt like it tried to take on a lot. You talked about long-term storage. You talk about temporary storage, and then obviously we talk about condition, and then we talk about how it relates to the POCD. My time on zoning, I think I know a little bit of the POCD. It just doesn't fit, but I want to say this to Mr. Cervone, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. I don't think this should end here. I think you're on to something. I think you've got the seed of something that could work, I hope could work. And I encourage you to work with, send letters to town council, to me, work with town staff, and polish this. And I think it's something that could be really interesting and something really good for the town. So thank you very much for submitting it.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Mr. Wang?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I just think it's a free country, and you're not hurting anybody by owning an RV. So I guess I'm surprised that there's opposition. I don't think you're hurting anybody. And I don't know if that's your tax bill, but that's a heck of a big tax bill. So I think that's a little bit unfair, I guess, that we're taxing you, but then it's illegal.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Ms. Harris?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to clarify, are we saying that we do send this back to committee, or?
Yes, we have to make a formal vote on the motion, on this ordinance right now, on the motion. And then we would make a motion, but we would direct that Mr. Ledwith put this on the Community Planning and Development Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other, Mr. Walters?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to make sure, to clarify, it hasn't been through committee, and so it would be a first time going through. So I just wanted to make sure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Ms. McGinnis? Sorry, I thought it's your committee. I thought you jumped to the, I don't know.
Well, since you called on me, through you, Madam Mayor, I do think sending this to committee is a good idea. I think spending a little bit more time on this and being really thoughtful about what we do on this is a good idea. So I agree.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll do a roll call vote. So Mr. Clerk can call the roll, and then, go ahead. You call the roll, Mr. Davidoff.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes. I mean, wait.
Yeah, let's clarify
Wait,
what
okay.
we're
The
voting on.
motion is to approve or deny. So I deny. Motion is, no, is the motion?
Madam Mayor, the motion that was made by the deputy mayor was a motion to deny
Okay.
without prejudice
That's right,
and to
so-
waive the application fee, which I think was around
$700.
$550 or somewhere around there
I think it was higher.
for the applicant. So a vote in the affirmative now is in favor of denying the motion
That's right.
or denying the application without prejudice.
I was right. You jumped on me. Yes.
Mayor Cantor,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
No.
Counselor Lazarus,
Yes.
Counselor Lyons.
Yes.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Poland,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Yes.
Counselor Wang,
No.
Counselor Winograd.
Yes.
The motion carries 7-2 to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. So the motion carries, the application is denied without prejudice, and the application fee is waived. I will refer this matter to Community Planning and Economic Development Committee for further study and potential recommendation of a revised ordinance as appropriate. All right. Then we will go now to, thank you very much. We will go to yeah, wow, there was a lot of, okay, 7B, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt a resolution concerning a lease at 13 South Main Street.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and hard to believe that the next chapter's original 5-year lease is up. I remember the ribbon cutting like it was yesterday, and our mayor was there. And
Crazy.
if memory serves, Deputy Mayor Poland was the chair of the Board of Ed at that time, too. So,
Wow.
So it's located at 13 South Main Street. It is a program run by our school district, by our post-secondary program, and it gives the opportunity for students in the post-secondary program to work at the bookstore Monday through Friday and learn, different life skills and job skills and independent skills that will better serve them as they enter life after graduation from the post-secondary program. So the $65,000 annual rent is completely funded by the Board of Education. You may ask why you're voting on this resolution. The Board of Ed can only educate students. That's their purview by state statute. So anything real estate related is done through the town, through the municipality. So this resolution will authorize the town manager to execute this 5-year extension to the original lease and take us through May 31st of 2031. And through you, Madam Mayor, happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith, and what a special opportunity this is to renew the lease and, again, support them. Any other comments or questions? Dr. Harris?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a great program, and glad we have it in town. I just had a question, is that, and you may not know this, but is the rent, has it gone up?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Harris's question, yes, it has. Everything's going up these days. So the original 5-year lease was at $54,000 a year, and it increased up to $65,000 with this extension.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wang, you had a question.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Town Manager Ledwith. Do we have any sense of how many students, for example, per year benefit from this program? And does this measurably improve their outcomes? Like, for example, do people, do some of the folks go off and find jobs in this field or can use it, in their future?
So I probably would defer to the superintendent to answer that more specifically, as I was involved originally when the program started, and I know on average there are a dozen or so, half dozen to a dozen students that participate in the program on a weekly basis. And you're learning job skills, so whether it pertains to working in a bookstore after graduation or some other capacity, yeah, without question, I can say anecdotally, it is serving a very concrete purpose, and we are fortunate to have this type of program here in West Hartford. It is very unique. but certainly can get more information from the Board of Education, have them share that with you directly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, thank you. Just a quick comment, and as the town manager mentioned, both you and I were involved in helping to get this set up, and although it is the Board of Education's purview to talk about the results and the process of how this bookstore is run, I would absolutely support continuing the lease because of its prime location. It receives a lot of walk-in visits. It's also a destination that I know a lot of people that I speak with talk about, like we're going to go to the next chapter, and it makes people feel like they're helping out or helping our next generation. So I would urge my colleagues to support the next chapter of the next chapter.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. All right. Anything further? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Because
Mr.
this
Jones.
involves the disposition of real estate, if we could
We
take this by a roll call vote,
Oh,
that would
okay.
be great. Thank you.
It says voice vote on my notes, just saying. Okay. All the, Mr. Davidoff.
Better safe than sorry.
We originally had this scheduled for a roll call. Madam Mayor,
Everybody has to be right. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Davidoff.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Lazarus,
Yes.
Counselor Lyons.
Yes.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pullen,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Affirmative.
Counselor Wang.
Sure.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Counselor Winograd.
Yes.
Passes unanimous 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. All right, now we are up to reports for the town manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll begin with upcoming council business and meetings. We have a Public Safety Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 3rd at 8 a.m. We have a Finance and Administration Committee meeting on Wednesday, February 4th at 6 p.m. And then our next town council meeting is February 10th at 7:30 p.m. I want to talk a little bit about our most recent snowstorm. Sunday's snowstorm was among the snowiest days in Connecticut history. It was also the second largest January snowfall on record. So I'd like to applaud our staff, especially Public Works, Police, Fire, Emergency Management, Facility Services, and Public Relations for a well-executed team effort during the first major snowstorm since 2021, which dropped, as we know, anywhere between 18 to 20 inches around town. In addition to clearing the streets, DPW also cleared the town and school parking lots so that normal operations could continue today. And this evening, Public Works crews will be back at it, clearing on-street parking in our central business district in Blueback Square. So they got a good night's rest last night after 30 straight hours of work, but back at it this evening. Thanks also to our residents who heeded our warnings and removed their vehicles from the road. This created a very safe environment for our snowplow drivers. Those who did not, our police department was very active in working directly with residents when cars were left on the street. So they issued 148 verbal warnings, 13 ordinance violation tickets, and then ended up unfortunately needing to tow 24 vehicles from different parts of town. Public Works has issued a winter weather travel advisory due to ongoing snow showers, Arctic cold temperatures, and resource limitations. Road conditions may be slippery and will remain unpredictable, changing without notice. Eversource has also issued an advisory noting that its biggest concern regarding power outages is vehicle crashing into utility poles. These crashes can cause significant damage, create hazardous situations for first responders and Eversource crews, and lead to outages. Please drive slowly and use extra caution. Plow crews are pushing back snow to the curb to open narrow roadways and scraping roads to the surface to reduce slippery conditions. When this happens, snow will also be pushed to the ends of driveways, which can be frustrating, as we know, for residents who must shovel out again. Narrow roads, however, are dangerous to all drivers. As a reminder, if you have a hydrant on or near your property, please clear a 3-foot radius around it. When a fire occurs, seconds count. We appreciate everyone's help with this effort. Lastly, we are keeping an eye out for another possible storm that may come our way this weekend. If you have not signed up for emergency notifications, please do so now. Go to our webpage, westhartfordct.gov, and click on How Do I on the top blue navigation bar, and then click Notify Me. Please note that trash and recyclable collection is delayed by 1 day this week. Place your barrel at the curb by 6 a.m. The Town of West Hartford is conducting a community survey to help inform and guide the preparation of a senior housing study. This effort seeks to further many of the goals and strategies outlined in the Plan of Conservation and Development, including encouraging a diversity of housing types and costs to provide current and future residents with access to and availability of housing options. This survey will help gather information on demographics, community housing needs, and preferences for West Hartford residents aged 55 and over. You can click on a survey. It'll be in the town manager's report. The survey will be has a direct link on that on the town manager's report. So, in addition to being on our website, the survey closes February 10th, 2026. Hard to imagine, but summer camp registration does begin very soon, February 4th. The 2026 spring and summer brochure is now available for viewing on the West Hartford Leisure Services website. Registration for summer camp programs only begins at noon on February 4th for West Hartford residents and at noon on February 11th for non-residents. Registration for all other spring and summer programs will begin on February 18th, 2026 at noon for West Hartford residents and February 25th, 2026 at noon for non-residents. And again, you can go on our website and click on information there to enroll in summer camps. And that concludes the town manager's report this evening, Mayor. Happy to answer any questions that the council had.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Any questions for the town manager? Okay, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, it was kind of a long, protracted storm we had Sunday into Monday. Just curious how many hours straight DPW worked on this event?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so it differed among staff, but it was 30 straight hours of work, but we did give them breaks during that 30-hour period, so they'd be back at DPW with some food and some opportunity to rest for 4 hours.
Through you,
And then
Madam
back
Mayor,
at
I
it.
apologize that I missed that detail, Mr. Town Manager. Sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Do you remember the days they used to have to sleep here and then get up and go, right? Well, yeah, I remember those days. Crazy. All right. Any other?
I thought somebody over there raised their hand too.
Oh, I had a quick. Miss McGinnis.
Did you, this was the second highest storm total? Is that what you said?
Second highest for the month of January.
Okay, when was the first? Do you know when
I
that
don't
was?
know.
Okay.
Yeah, off the top of my head. Yeah.
You know, as a Southerner, this is a, this is a lot.
Well, Tennessee is out of power, so. Yeah, a lot of ice.
Madam Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Walters.
Madam Mayor, thank you, and through you. I just, in driving around town the last couple of days, I have noticed a lot of residential residents that have cleared their sidewalks. However, I've noticed a few businesses that have not, and I would encourage them to do so, especially those on corners, because that blocks the crosswalks and access.
Yes, thank you. All right, Mr. Wine.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Town Manager Ledwith. I just want to say one thing was I noticed almost everybody cleared the snow off their roofs except for a couple people. I went to the mall yesterday. I saw one car with one of those snow cakes on their roof. So just want to say thank you to our townspeople for clearing your cars because the snow cakes are really dangerous. And I do have this does lead into a question: is do we ticket those folks when they do have the snow cakes?
So if we observe I'd have to double check this through the police department, though. If we observe a car driving down the street and it has that, I do believe that is a moving violation. Yeah, but I need to confirm that with.
It is.
Yeah.
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 I think my husband got one once.
Yeah, I think my wife did too.
But really, the vast majority of people in town did a great job of
That
clearing
was
their
brand
cars.
new. That was when the law was brand new. He's much better now. But yes, that's important. All right. Okay. Anything else? All right. Corporation Counsel, Mr. Dodge. Thank you, Mr. Levitt. Mr. Dodge.
Thank you,
anything?
Madam Mayor. I have no formal report and require no executive session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dodge. All right. I also just want to extend my thanks to really a job incredibly well done. I had many comments of people that had gone to other towns that did not experience the same level of wider roads and the amount of clearing. And schools, there were a number of towns around us that schools were not held today because they weren't ready. So, and I'm sure the parents weren't extraordinarily happy. I will say I actually have seen a number of sidewalks that were not done, and this is not like you can just kind of trudge through. This is, and one was on Albany and one was somewhere else. And I know people go away and they're not aware necessarily of a big fall. So if you do identify a house that needs to be done or a business that has not done their sidewalks, which we have been calling businesses and ticketing, please call the police routine line. That's the place where the complaints go, so they can follow up. 860-523-5203. That's police routine. And I know there is a woman that I met at the senior, at the senior center, and she wanted me to get back to her on this, and I don't have her contact information. So I'm hoping that it finds out. So, all right, just quick announcements. Library Kindness Project runs now through February 6th. I think you all know about that. Donations benefit West Hartford Food Pantry and the Fern Street Universalist Church. 3 events postponed to weather: sustainable snow removal with Public Works Director John Phillips. He was busy. Welcome to Kindergarten information session will now be on February 2nd, and the police department's Penguin Plunge will be a date in March. They're not going forward with it. That's pretty. All you have to do is jump in a snowbank anyway. All right. We had the People Student Essay Contest celebrating America's 250th. The West Hartford Mayor's Youth Council, West Hartford Public Library hosting this student essay contest to highlight the stories of significant historical figures in West Hartford. This is for grades 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. And there is a prize of $500 for first place, $250 for second, and $100 for third place. There is a link with rules and the submission form. Gutenberg the Musical, if you haven't seen it, you should. There are surprise cameos at the end, which is really cool. It's wildly clever and high-energy musical spoof, takes the audience on a joyful ride, and honestly, it felt really good to laugh. West Hartford Legislative Delegation will be holding a discussion on February 5th, 6 to 7:30 in room 314, this room. And this will be a brief overview of the upcoming legislative session. And that begins the day before on February 4th, discussion of major legislative issues affecting our community and a Q&A session. If you want any more information, there's a link on our website. In Canto, an afternoon at the Opera, acclaimed artists to present this powerful program featuring music, Verdi, Puccini, Tchaikovsky, Bernstein, and more. This program highlights sweeping romantic arias, dramatic duets, and thrilling ensembles, and will take place Sunday, February 1st, 3 p.m. at the University of St. Joseph, and there's a link for tickets. And then Save the Date showcase, February 15th, will be 1 to 4 in Town Hall. This is a grand display of 27 official versions of the American flag from 1776 to present. Learn when states were added and events happening in our country. Participate in a flag folding demonstration. Bring your old worn American flag to learn how to retire it. Learn the meaning behind the Pledge of Allegiance. Children will receive an I Love America activity book and participate in some sing-alongs, including Star Spangled Banner, Your Grand Old Flag, This Land Is Your Land, and God Bless America. Free giveaways, door prizes announced every hour, and much more. I will say that just a reminder, and always think about our Councilor Alberto Cortez on this. Food is really in need, and especially when people can't get out. There are a lot of elderly people that do not want to go out in this frigid cold. Think about them, not just families with kids in need. Please check on your elderly neighbor. I will just say that my mom is 97. She lives in the house I grew up in. Oh, that's, I know, an issue. And she gets a paper every morning. And a neighbor's boy who started doing this when he was 6 years old brings the paper up to right outside her front door so she can open her front door and just pick up her paper. And it's a really wonderful community kind of building thing that he does every day for my mom. And it really means the world to her to have that news right on her doorstep. So little things like that can really be transformational and really mean so much to community members. So I just will say, and when we're going through challenges, and we are, whether it's weather or other challenges that our country faces and things that happen, reaching out to your neighbor, giving a helping hand does mean the world to people. So on that note, I will just say, lend a hand. And I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there any objection? Oh, sorry, did you have an announcement? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I don't know how to approach these things learning, so.
If it's a statement that's not, you can do that, that's not.
Not for now.
Not
Yeah,
for now.
Thank you.
Okay. I make a motion, any objections to adjourn? No objections? Okay, we are now adjourned. Thank you.